the city that breathes. Imagine stepping onto a street, feeling it rise gently beneath your feet, like stepping onto the chest of some great slumbering giant. You pause, unsure, as a soft vibration pulses beneath your shoes, synchronized to the slow rhythm of your own breath. Before you can even comprehend what's happening, the buildings around you subtly shift and sigh, windows and balconies folding gracefully, rearranging themselves as if in response to your inner thoughts. You are not dreaming, nor lost in some surreal fantasy. You've entered the city that breathes, a living, responsive metropolis that senses, adapts, and reshapes itself to the emotional currents flowing through its inhabitants. Welcome to the place where architecture has consciousness, where structures live, pulsate, and evolve as naturally as the cells within our own bodies. In this city, every building inhales and exhales, walls gently swelling outward and contracting inward, following the tempo of collective human emotions. On bright mornings, when joy radiates from the crowds bustling through busy streets, buildings rise high and open themselves wide, their windows glittering in harmony, as if mirroring the optimistic smiles of passers-by. But during darker moments, when melancholy or sadness filters into the air, the same buildings bend lower, their colors dimming into muted hues, providing shelter and comfort, embracing those who pass by, as if whispering that they understand. But how could this be real? Could human emotions truly affect something as static as concrete, glass, and steel? To find answers, we must first question our assumptions about what is possible. There are documented instances, albeit rare and perplexing, where human emotional states appear to influence physical reality. Take, for example, the scientifically studied phenomenon of the placebo effect, where belief alone can produce tangible physiological changes within the human body. Or consider the mysterious studies around plants responding positively to gentle voices, soft music, and even the emotional tone of their caretakers. Could it be that, under certain extraordinary conditions, collective human emotions might also resonate with non-organic materials, creating a symbiotic relationship that defies traditional scientific understanding? In the city that breathes, exactly such a phenomenon occurs. Architects and urban planners here abandoned conventional principles decades ago, experimenting instead with bio-integrated structures and intelligent materials sensitive to electromagnetic fields produced by human brain activity. Buildings constructed from advanced nanomaterials, blended with organic fibers capable of sensing and responding to subtle energetic shifts, now stand as living testimony to the incredible potential of human ingenuity and emotional resonance. To visualize this further, picture walking through a crowded plaza, your heart heavy with worry. The buildings around you, sensing this emotional turbulence, gradually rearrange themselves. Walls quietly slide closer, forming sheltered alcoves with lush gardens and softly glowing lamps, offering privacy and solace precisely when needed most. Even the sounds of the city subtly change. Harsh noise is dampened, replaced by gentle harmonies composed to soothe troubled souls. Conversely, during festivals or moments of collective joy, the same buildings expand and lift toward the heavens, creating wide open spaces where the city literally breathes excitement into its citizens. Streets widen, opening like welcoming arms, transforming into vibrant promenades filled with music, lights, and laughter. The city becomes a physical manifestation of happiness itself, amplifying positive emotions, fostering connections, and nurturing collective harmony. Yet, perhaps even more compellingly, this city teaches profound lessons about emotional responsibility. Imagine an argument erupting between two people on a bustling corner. Immediately, the surrounding buildings subtly tense, their forms narrowing slightly, mirroring the emotional strain. Passers-by notice this subtle discomfort in their environment and instinctively moderate their own feelings, diffusing tensions. Through this delicate, continuous feedback loop, the city gently guides its inhabitants toward emotional mindfulness and harmony. The deeper one explores the workings of this extraordinary metropolis, the more it becomes clear that it is not merely responding to surface-level moods. Instead, it reacts to deeper emotional truths, unconscious needs, unspoken desires, and underlying feelings. A subtle sadness you barely acknowledge within yourself may trigger the soft blooming of flowers along your path, silently offering comfort and understanding. Your unexpressed joy at seeing an old friend might ripple through nearby architecture, creating momentary bridges or walkways, bringing people physically closer, reflecting emotional connection through tangible space. Such interactions highlight a profound, often overlooked truth. Emotions are not intangible wisps of feeling locked within individual minds. They are powerful, shared energies capable of shaping reality itself. Some might fear such deep interconnectedness, finding it invasive or unsettling. Others might embrace it, seeing a world where empathy is literally embedded into the environment as a beautiful utopia. The city, however, offers no judgments, only responses. It reflects and amplifies our emotional truths, encouraging authenticity, honesty, and self-awareness. Consider the implications. What if every city could learn from this breathing metropolis? Could violence diminish, compassion flourish, and empathy become the cornerstone of urban life? Might we finally realize a world where emotional intelligence is as valued as technological advancement, where architecture serves not only practical needs but emotional well-being too? As you walk these breathing streets, you begin to understand this city is more than just a marvel of innovation. It's a living, breathing example of humanity's potential for unity and harmony. It shows us that, beneath the superficial divisions of language, culture, and belief, there exists a common emotional fabric connecting all people, a fabric powerful enough, perhaps, to reshape our collective reality. So, next time you walk through your own city streets, pay attention to how your surroundings affect your emotions, and how your emotions might, in turn, subtly shape your world. What if your city, too, breathes with you, invisibly responding to your innermost feelings? Would you walk differently, feel differently, live differently? The city that breathes isn't just an incredible place. It's an idea whose time has come, a gentle yet profound reminder that our environment and emotions are intricately intertwined. It invites us to reconsider the very essence of what a city could be. Not merely a collection of structures, but a living expression of collective human experience, forever changing, forever breathing with us. The stairwell to nowhere. In the silence between consciousness and dreams, there lies a space untouched by logic, a realm whispered about only in shadows. The stairwell to nowhere. You've stood at its threshold 1,000 times without knowing. Perhaps you glimpsed it in the flickering twilight between wakefulness and sleep, or sensed its presence in that fleeting déjà vu that escapes just as you grasp it. But what is it exactly? And why, despite never consciously entering, do you feel you've already ascended its endless spiral? Imagine now, stepping onto the first step. Your foot settles onto cold marble, worn smooth not by your passage, but by countless footsteps of others who've wandered here before. As your weight shifts forward, something inexplicable unfolds. A memory blossoms vividly in your mind, not hazy and half-formed like dreams, but sharp and piercingly real. You are walking down a cobbled street in an old city, sunlight dancing between buildings you've never seen, casting shapes that echo familiarity. Your heart aches gently, a bittersweet nostalgia for a life you did not lead. You hear laughter, and a name escapes your lips, whispered intimately, as if you've spoken it 1,000 times, though it belongs to no one you know. You shake it off, convinced it was merely imagination playing tricks. But your foot lifts and lands again, the second step. Another memory floods your mind. This time, it's rain-soaked pavement beneath neon signs, a city whose name your tongue refuses to form. You feel your pulse quicken with urgency, and the sting of something left unfinished. You reach for a pocket watch that isn't there, glance at your wrist to see a scar you never earned. Step by step, the staircase coils upward, spiraling into infinity. And each movement upward pulls you deeper into lifetimes you've never lived, but recognize vividly. A farmhouse kitchen, warm bread scent mixing with laughter as children, whose faces you adore but cannot name, rush around your legs. A battlefield at dawn, the mist heavy and thick with the scent of earth and iron, your heart pounding, your voice hoarse from screaming orders into chaos. Each step is an echo, a perfect recording of a moment from lives you have never known. Yet, your heart bears their weight. You climb higher, compelled by fascination, or perhaps desperation, driven by an innate need to understand why these memories fill you with both profound love and inexplicable sorrow. Is it your own past whispering through fractured dimensions of reality, or the borrowed echoes of souls who once walked where you now tread? Science struggles to decipher phenomena like déjà vu, experiences scientists attribute to cognitive glitches or misfirings of neural pathways. But what if those dismissive explanations hide something deeper? Quantum theory speaks of infinite universes, each branching from every choice made and every choice left unmade. Perhaps the stairwell to nowhere is no hallucination or imaginative construction, but rather a bridge spanning those parallel worlds, where each step carries you across invisible boundaries between alternate existences. Each stair you climb becomes a mirror, reflecting back possibilities that branch infinitely from your present self. With every footfall, another universe unfolds. Somewhere, a version of you embraces the life that memory portrays vividly. You, the soldier, standing resilient against impossible odds. You, the parent, holding the hand of a child whose smile you adore yet never knew. You, the wanderer, caught in an adventure in a land mapped by no cartographer from your reality. Philosophers suggest consciousness may transcend our bodies, extending far beyond individual lifetimes. Carl Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, a reservoir of shared human experiences and archetypes that every person taps into unconsciously. The stairwell to nowhere might be the physical manifestation of this cosmic library, each step a page turning, showing you chapters of stories that humanity itself authored, moments of grief, love, triumph, and despair that echo across eternity. Perhaps you've always sensed it, the feeling of knowing someone you just met, the inexplicable sorrow that strikes without warning, or dreams that feel more authentic than waking life. You are already intimately familiar with the stairwell, unknowingly climbing it nightly in dreams, traversing invisible pathways that knit together the fabric of human experience. As you climb higher, realization dawns. There is no final step, no climax to this infinite spiral. Each ascent is not toward an endpoint, but deeper into understanding. You climb not to escape, but to integrate these echoes into your soul, each memory enriching your emotional landscape, expanding empathy, and broadening the very definition of self. Through these borrowed experiences, you learn compassion for grief you never felt firsthand, gratitude for joy you've never personally tasted, and courage for battles you've never personally fought. Now, pause for a moment on this endless ascent. Breathe deeply and let the stairwell show you one final memory, a quiet moment beneath unfamiliar stars. You stand atop a mountain whose name you cannot recall, your heart full, overflowing with gratitude for lives you've glimpsed. This stairwell, this infinite spiral, is not a curse or a puzzle to solve. It is a profound gift, an invitation to experience the boundless diversity of existence, without limits or constraints. You carry these memories forward into your waking world, richer for each impossible moment lived. Perhaps someday, you'll step again into this stairwell knowingly, eager to ascend further into the infinite possibilities of existence. So, tonight when sleep embraces you once again, remember, you're never truly lost or alone. You've already ascended countless stairs, lived countless lives, loved deeply, mourned fiercely, triumphed courageously. The stairwell to nowhere awaits your return, offering infinite ascent, each step resonating profoundly within your soul. Will you step onto the next stair, prepared to experience a life you've never lived, but always remembered? The memory ocean. The ocean, a vast expanse so profound and enigmatic, we've long associated it with mystery, depth, and the unknown. But imagine, just for a moment, standing on a shoreline not lapped by mere water, but by waves composed entirely of memories, waves breaking gently, softly, whispering forgotten moments into the sands of time. This is not a poetic metaphor, nor a figment of imagination. This is the memory ocean, a place woven intricately into the fabric of our consciousness, hidden yet unmistakably real. Every wave crashing upon this surreal shoreline does not carry water or foam, but delicate echoes of past events, long-forgotten childhood laughter, fleeting glimpses of half-remembered faces, and the faint traces of scents that tug sharply at something within. Each breaker is infused with fragments of our experiences, sensations we've lost to time, yet preserved eternally within this oceanic repository of memory. We've all felt this phenomenon, those sudden, unbidden rushes of recollection, triggered by the most trivial things. A whiff of perfume drifting from a stranger passing by, suddenly transporting you decades back to the comfort of your grandmother's embrace. Or perhaps a distant melody floating softly from a cafe window, and in an instant, you're 8 again, feeling the sun's warmth as you ride your bicycle down an endless road, convinced that summer could never end. These sensations are the currents of the memory ocean washing over us. They arrive unannounced, flooding our senses, overwhelming us briefly with their intensity, and then withdrawing, leaving behind a curious mixture of comfort and melancholy. Scientists refer to these phenomena as involuntary autobiographical memories, intense, vivid recollections that arise spontaneously, often triggered by sensory experiences. Yet, science alone can't fully explain their profound emotional resonance, nor their uncanny precision. One compelling example comes from individuals who have survived traumatic experiences. Many survivors speak of specific triggers, a certain sound, a color, a smell, that bring back vivid, sometimes overwhelming memories of their past ordeals. These triggers aren't merely emotional flashbacks. They feel physically present, as if the events themselves are literally washing back over them. Such powerful sensations suggest that memories don't simply reside passively in our minds. Instead, they exist actively around us, suspended in a medium as tangible as water itself, an ocean we navigate without fully realizing it. But why do certain memories find their way to the shore of consciousness while others remain submerged in the depths beyond reach? Researchers speculate that our subconscious mind selectively filters these moments, bringing forth memories we most need, often precisely when we need them. Like waves responding to the gravitational pull of the moon, our memories surface in response to subtle, emotional tides within us, offering comfort, warning, or sometimes gentle confrontation. Moreover, the memory ocean challenges our understanding of identity and continuity. Are we defined solely by what we actively recall, or also by these submerged fragments, moments long faded from active consciousness, yet still influencing us profoundly? Perhaps identity isn't a rigidly maintained structure, but rather an ever-shifting shoreline, constantly reshaped by these waves of forgotten experience. The person you believe yourself to be might only be the tip of an iceberg. Beneath the surface, vast hidden currents of memory continue to flow silently, shaping your every instinct, reaction, and dream. Interestingly, culture has long hinted at the existence of such an ocean. Ancient mythologies speak of waters holding the essence of memory itself. The Greeks referred to the river Mnemosyne, personifying memory as a flowing current that preserves the deeds and emotions of humanity. Indigenous cultures often speak of sacred waters holding ancestral memories, accessible during rituals or dreams. Even today, poetic descriptions of nostalgia invoke imagery of drowning or swimming, as though we intuitively sense memory as a fluid living entity. And this ocean doesn't merely hold individual recollections, it connects all of humanity. Imagine countless waves intermingling, moments overlapping, shared experiences forming invisible currents that bind us together. Perhaps those uncanny moments of déjà vu, those inexplicable feelings of familiarity in completely new situations, are merely instances of stepping into another's memories, momentarily touching their personal tides. Yet, despite its comforting familiarity, the memory ocean can be overwhelming. Not every wave brings pleasant recollections. Some memories surface like violent storms, battering us with images we'd prefer to forget, painful losses, regrets, and betrayals. But these too are necessary currents, reminders of our vulnerability, resilience, and growth. Each tempest eventually subsides, leaving behind newfound wisdom, compassion, and strength etched into the shoreline of our lives. Furthermore, neuroscientists now understand memory not as static storage, but dynamic and reconstructive, reshaped each time we access it. This implies that every wave crashing on the shores of consciousness changes subtly with each visitation. Like sand grains continuously shifting beneath the surf, our memories evolve, reinterpreted and recontextualized throughout our lives, making the memory ocean a living, breathing entity, one we actively co-create. Consider your own personal experiences. Recall a childhood home, a favorite meal, a significant birthday. Each revisitation feels slightly different, each recollection nuanced, sometimes bringing new insights or emotions that weren't there before. These shifts are evidence of the fluid nature of memory, a testament to the active, living quality of this ocean we all inhabit unknowingly. In the end, the memory ocean is a powerful reminder of the richness and complexity of our inner lives. It teaches us humility, respect for the past, and a deeper appreciation for those subtle, fleeting moments that compose our existence. It reminds us that life isn't merely a linear progression, but a continual dialogue with our former selves. Each wave an invitation to reconnect, rediscover, and ultimately re-understand who we are. As you stand now, gazing across this intangible yet profoundly real ocean, realize that you are never truly alone. Countless echoes surround you, washing gently onto your shore, whispering stories you thought were lost forever, urging you to dive deeper into the hidden depths of your own consciousness. Let yourself become aware of the waves, those delicate currents brushing against you even now, carrying whispers of 1,000 forgotten truths. The memory ocean is yours. Immerse yourself fully. Embrace every wave, every fragment. For in those fleeting moments, hidden in the tides of recollection, lies the true essence of what it means to be human, forever drifting, remembering, and reconnecting, one wave at a time. Time-Drenched Forest. Imagine stepping into a forest that breathes not oxygen, but time itself. Each leaf trembling on the branches does not merely rustle in the wind. It drips seconds, trickling away slowly, steadily into the forest floor beneath your feet. Each vine crawling through the trees does not just entangle the trunks, it wraps tightly around hours, holding the passage of time captive, twisting and binding it with a grip stronger than iron. As you venture deeper, you notice something unnerving, something impossible. The creatures here age backward, becoming younger, smaller, more fragile the longer your gaze rests upon them. This is the time-drenched forest, a realm existing outside of human comprehension, where reality bends gently and profoundly to the whims of an invisible clockmaker. Time here does not flow linearly, neatly from past to future. Instead, it seeps into the soil, pools into the roots, and rises like mist, enveloping everything in a paradoxical embrace of suspended chronology. Imagine kneeling down to watch a beetle scuttling across the decaying leaves. At first glance, it moves normally, skittering forward in a rush to some hidden destination. But then you pause, observing closely. Each second you watch, the beetle becomes smaller, younger, its chitin softening, its movements slowing, until it shrinks down to its larval form, vulnerable and helpless, retreating from adulthood in a bewildering reversal of life. You pull your gaze away, unsettled, and instantly the beetle resumes its forward march, age restored, as if your attention alone unraveled the fabric of its existence. In the heart of this forest, towering trees breathe slowly, inhaling and exhaling decades. Their bark is marked not merely with rings that record years, but spirals that record forgotten memories, regrets, and joys of the world beyond their borders. Touching these spirals is akin to placing your fingers on the pulse of eternity itself. Visions flooding your mind, memories from ages long before your birth. You might see a woman standing by the same tree centuries ago, her eyes wide with wonder, her fingers trembling as she touches the bark, her own memories bleeding into the tree, feeding it, becoming part of its infinite consciousness. What secrets does such a place hold? It challenges our deepest understanding of time, of existence itself. Is time, as we understand it, merely a gentle illusion, something we invented to structure our lives, yet utterly meaningless beyond human perception? Consider how deeply tied we are to the concept of time. Clocks, schedules, calendars. Our identities are anchored to the ticking hands of watches, the relentless flipping of pages, the aging reflection staring back from mirrors. But here, in the time-drenched forest, all of that is stripped away. You realize something profound. Time is not a fixed river moving steadily toward the horizon. Time is malleable, a fluid substance dripping freely from leaves, pooling at your feet, swirling around your ankles like mist. It flows backward, forward, sideways, circling around you, bending reality into shapes that defy logic and shatter expectations. Imagine encountering a deer grazing peacefully at the edge of a small clearing. As you watch, its antlers shrink, its limbs grow thinner, its body becomes lighter, younger, until it stumbles awkwardly as a newborn fawn. Continue watching, and the fawn collapses into nothingness, dissolved into the womb of a memory that never was. You blink rapidly, disbelief clouding your vision, yet when you reopen your eyes, the deer stands there once more, fully grown, oblivious to the miraculous impossibility that occurred moments ago. Time is not simply reversed here. It's undone, remade, continuously reinvented by your mere observation. The forest responds to you, the observer, making you an active participant in its bizarre dance. It asks you silently, urgently, is time something outside of us, independent, immutable? Or is time an artifact of our own minds, a construct created by human consciousness to lend meaning and structure to our existence? If such a place truly exists, and there are whispers, hidden tales across cultures, of similar realms, then reality itself is more complex, more wondrous than our limited perceptions allow. Native folklore speaks of forests that hold the spirits of ancestors suspended in eternal youth, guardians who protect the secrets of time. European legends tell of enchanted woods where fairies dwell, existing eternally outside mortal constraints, where a single night might last 100 years. Modern science, too, tantalizingly hints at possibilities through theories of quantum mechanics and space-time distortions, suggesting that such realms might not be mere myth, but undiscovered pockets of reality where time genuinely behaves differently. The Time-Drenched Forest beckons you not merely as a place of fantasy, but as a revelation, a challenge. It calls upon you to reconsider everything you thought you knew about reality. Time, age, existence. These are not fixed rules of the universe, but mutable ideas waiting to be reshaped by imagination, perception, and perhaps even belief itself. Walking slowly out of the forest, leaving behind creatures caught in eternal loops of birth and decay, vines wrapped tightly around stolen hours, and leaves endlessly dripping precious seconds. You carry with you a newfound sense of wonder and humility. You've glimpsed a truth too profound for ordinary comprehension, that our universe, our existence, may be far more delicate, far more miraculous than we dare to believe. The next time you glance at your watch or calendar, ask yourself a single question. Is this ticking second hand guiding your life, or is it simply measuring an illusion crafted to comfort a species unable to grasp eternity? For deep in the time-drenched forest, eternity awaits, dripping softly from every leaf, whispering gently through vines that wrap themselves around time itself, waiting patiently for the next curious traveler brave enough to look, and forever changed by what they find. The moon below. Imagine standing on the edge of a world inverted, a place so profoundly strange that reality itself seems to gently unravel around you. Beneath your feet is not solid ground, nor the comforting stability of Earth's familiar embrace, but rather an endless expanse, a cavernous sky stretching infinitely downward. This impossible chasm opens beneath you, defying every rule you've been conditioned to believe. And at the very heart of this inverted abyss hangs the moon, soft, luminous, and mesmerizing, gently pulsing with a glow unlike anything you've ever seen. This is the world known only as the moon below, a place whispered about in stories passed down in hushed tones from generations long forgotten. A realm where the laws of nature are not just defied, but gracefully reversed. Here, gravity itself is merely a suggestion. You can sense the gentle pull from below, a calm yet undeniable force coaxing you downward, toward the soft lunar radiance beneath your feet. To look down into this infinite void, into the moon's silvery eye, is to confront the very fabric of your reality. The first sensation is disorientation, vertigo on a cosmic scale. Your mind tries to grasp familiar bearings, to orient itself to the upward sky and downward earth. But in this realm, those directions hold no meaning. Above you is darkness, endless, velvety, sprinkled with distant stars that barely whisper their presence. But below lies the breathtaking spectacle of a full moon glowing steadily, shimmering gently, casting a silver illumination upwards, a moon inverted in every possible way. As you peer into this inverted cosmos, something incredible begins to happen. From the glowing moon beneath rise droplets, each glistening with ethereal beauty, drifting upward toward you in delicate arcs. Each droplet is not mere water, nor any substance recognized by earthly science. These are droplets of dreams, fragments of hope, desire, fear, and memory, rising softly, defying gravity, forming an upward rain that caresses your face, your fingertips, and your very soul. Each dream drop carries a fragment of consciousness, an echo of experiences both familiar and alien. You reach out, capturing one in your palm. Instantly, a vivid vision envelops you. Perhaps it's the laughter of a forgotten childhood moment, a fleeting image of a place you've never visited, yet somehow recognize intimately, or the gentle whisper of a voice you've lost to time. Another droplet brushes your cheek, and you feel a pang of nostalgia for memories not your own, a story that belongs to another, yet resonates deeply within your heart. These dream droplets are bridges, connecting worlds, consciousness, and experiences. In this place, boundaries blur between self and other, between past, present, and future. Your reality becomes fluid, permeable, infused with possibilities. You begin to sense the interconnectedness of all consciousness, realizing that every soul, every life, every thought is linked through an unseen tapestry of dreams woven within this cosmic cavern. Consider the moon itself, how it quietly governs our tides, rhythms, and dreams. On Earth, the moon has always symbolized mystery and intuition, but here, suspended beneath you, its role is far more profound. It is not merely a reflector of sunlight, but a beacon of consciousness itself, radiating gentle waves of thought energy that ripple upward, touching the dreams of every sentient being. This moon is the universal dreamweaver, a cosmic keeper of secrets and stories, endlessly transmitting and receiving the collective memories of the universe. And you wonder, is this inverted moon the true moon, revealing a hidden truth obscured from human eyes? Could our familiar moon, floating high in Earth's sky, merely be a reflection or shadow of this deeper, more profound lunar presence beneath reality's surface? Such thoughts linger, tantalizing your mind with cosmic riddles. Yet, there is also a gentle melancholy here. As dreams ascend, they eventually drift upwards, dispersing into the infinite darkness above. Each droplet of memory or vision eventually fades, merging again with the boundless night sky, lost yet preserved forever in the fabric of this surreal cosmos. Witnessing this cyclical dance of creation and dissolution, you understand the impermanence of every experience, the fleeting nature of existence itself. In your time here, standing above the moon beneath, your perception expands immeasurably. You realize how limited your understanding of reality has always been. The laws of physics, gravity, and consciousness seem trivial now, boundaries artificially imposed by a limited mind. Here, beneath your feet, lies proof that existence is richer, stranger, and infinitely more nuanced than you ever imagined possible. This inverted lunar landscape teaches humility and wonder simultaneously. Humility in the realization of your smallness within the vastness of the cosmos. Wonder at the infinite possibilities existing just beyond ordinary perception. It invites you to question, deeply and intensely, what if all we've understood about our universe, about ourselves, is merely a fraction of a deeper, more profound truth? As you linger, absorbing the beauty and strangeness of this inverted dreamscape, you feel your perception shifting irrevocably. The moon below is no longer just a surreal vision, it is an invitation to explore deeper truths, to embrace uncertainty, to find comfort in mystery itself. This realm asks you to become a dreamer again, to trust intuition and imagination as gateways to understanding. And when at last you step away from this luminous void, returning to your familiar world, you carry something invaluable within your soul, an awareness that reality is not fixed or rigid, but fluid, beautiful, and profoundly mysterious. This world beneath your feet, the moon softly glowing below, will forever call to you, whispering gently in your dreams, reminding you that beneath the surface of everything you know lies a universe far more wondrous than anything your waking mind has ever dared imagine. Identity Bazaar. Imagine wandering through a bustling marketplace unlike any you've ever known, a bazaar hidden somewhere between dream and reality, illuminated by lanterns flickering with shades you've never seen. As you step into this surreal space, the air hums softly, whispering secrets you can't quite decipher. Stalls stretch endlessly into the horizon, each one filled not with fruits, spices, or silks, but with masks, thousands upon thousands of masks, Each mask is meticulously crafted, exquisite in its detail, radiating a quiet yet powerful aura. As you approach, you feel an irresistible urge, a yearning that echoes deep within your very being. The masked merchants smile knowingly, their eyes glinting with mystery. They beckon you closer, offering you an experience more profound than you could have ever imagined. In this place, the Identity Bazaar, every mask holds not just a face, but an entire lifetime. Slip one onto your face, and for a single night, you inhabit another person's existence completely. Thoughts, emotions, memories, desires. Your own identity gently fades away as this new persona emerges vividly within you. Picture holding a delicate porcelain mask, adorned with gold filigree, as you feel its gentle weight in your hands. You place it carefully against your face, and instantly, the bazaar dissolves around you. You awaken as a renowned painter in Paris, your hands stained with vibrant oils. You gaze upon a canvas filled with colors that speak truths words never could. You recall lovers you've never known, heartbreaks you've never endured, successes and failures that fill you with an overwhelming joy and melancholy. For this night, your world is art, passion, creativity. You taste it deeply, savoring every sensation, every precious moment. But when dawn breaks, the mask gently slips from your face, the painted world dissolving back into mist, leaving you forever changed, carrying echoes of another's soul within your own. This bazaar is not mere fantasy or illusion. It taps into something deeper, an ancient, metaphysical truth about the fluidity of identity itself. Modern neuroscience hints at the astonishing malleability of the human brain, how easily our sense of self can shift or even fracture. Identity, we discover, is less a fixed point than a spectrum of infinite possibility. The bazaar, therefore, becomes a vivid metaphor for our endless quest to understand ourselves through the lives of others. Yet, remarkably, some who wander here return, convinced they've truly lived another life, not merely dreamed it. Scientists struggle to explain these experiences. Are they hallucinations, lucid dreams, alternate realities briefly glimpsed, or something stranger still? Let's explore deeper. You pause at another stall and lift a weathered wooden mask carved into an expression of serene wisdom. Once placed on your face, you awaken as a spiritual leader atop a remote mountain monastery, surrounded by ancient scrolls, followers bowing respectfully at your feet. You understand complex philosophies intuitively, feeling a profound sense of peace and clarity. For that single night, you're not merely pretending. You embody this wise teacher completely, carrying generations of spiritual wisdom in your heart. When morning returns, a lingering serenity remains, a gift of borrowed enlightenment. But what happens when you choose darker masks? What if curiosity draws you toward experiences that unsettle or frighten you? You approach a mask carved from dark obsidian, its expression enigmatic, mysterious. Placing it against your face, you suddenly find yourself leading a life entirely foreign to your values. Perhaps a cunning thief in a shadowy city, thriving on deception and betrayal. You feel exhilaration at forbidden thrills, emotions you've never dared admit lurking within your subconscious. Yet even this experience offers profound insights, confronting you with hidden truths about morality, judgment, and your own hidden shadows. Some return from these masks changed, humbled, more empathetic, or deeply disturbed. They grapple with questions few dare ask. Are we truly fixed souls, or merely vessels capable of infinite variation? Do we hold within us every potential identity, waiting only for the right mask to unlock it? Philosophers argue that this bazaar captures the essence of human life itself. Each of us wears countless masks, adjusting our identity to fit roles we adopt. Worker, lover, parent, friend. In daily life, these masks subtly guide our behavior. Yet here, at the Identity Bazaar, those metaphors become vividly literal, forcing us to confront the fragile boundary between authenticity and pretense. Psychologists speak of the phenomenon known as depersonalization, moments when individuals feel disconnected from their own identity, as though observing themselves from a distance. Could the masks of the bazaar be tapping into this phenomenon intentionally, guiding us toward deeper truths by temporarily stripping away the illusions of permanence and singularity we cling to? And perhaps the most compelling mystery of all, who crafts these masks? Mask makers, silent artists working at the bazaar's fringes, never reveal their identities. Some speculate they're beings who long ago transcended individuality, merging themselves into infinite possibilities, offering us glimpses of universes within. Others whisper they're merely reflections of our subconscious desires, crafting experiences perfectly suited to each visitor's deepest, unspoken needs. Yet, despite the alluring promise of infinite lives, those who linger too long in the bazaar begin losing sight of their original selves. Identity can erode under the weight of endless possibilities, leaving them trapped in perpetual limbo, endlessly chasing fragments of borrowed lives. It's a powerful reminder that while exploration enriches us, losing touch with our true core risks a dangerous descent into existential confusion. As dawn finally approaches, you prepare to leave the bazaar, but before you exit, you gaze around one last time. You realize that every soul around you, every visitor, is also on their journey of self-discovery, driven by the same burning curiosity to explore other lives, seeking meaning, clarity, and connection. Returning to your familiar reality, you carry within yourself traces of every borrowed life, shaping you subtly yet profoundly. Each mask you wore teaches you empathy, humility, complexity, reminding you that the self is far broader than any single identity could contain. The Identity Bazaar, then, serves as both a mesmerizing adventure and a profound philosophical lesson. It invites you to explore lives beyond your own, to challenge your assumptions about identity, empathy, and reality itself. But ultimately, its deepest gift is the realization that beneath all masks lies a core essence, an ever-evolving consciousness, beautifully capable of infinite expression. Ask yourself now, which masks have you unknowingly worn throughout your life? Which identities remain hidden within, waiting for you to explore? And if you had just one night in this bazaar, one chance to choose, who would you become and why? Perhaps the greatest revelation of all is this: each identity, each mask, is already yours, hidden deep within. The bazaar simply gives you permission to discover it. Carnival of Regret. In the farthest corners of your restless mind lies a place untouched by daylight, a carnival of regret, forever shimmering beneath an endless twilight. This is not merely a dream or a figment conjured by imagination, but rather a hidden sanctuary, concealed deep within the folds of your subconscious, a place where echoes of your unspoken fears and forgotten sorrows come alive beneath flickering neon lights and the eerie melodies of rusted calliopes. You find yourself wandering, somehow familiar with its winding pathways. You recognize it, not from memory, but from a deep ache in your chest. The carnival's gates open silently, welcoming you into its world, a dimension of reflective torment and profound revelation. Every ride, every stall, every shadowy figure who beckons you closer is a manifestation of guilt, regret, and missed opportunities, crafted meticulously from your inner struggles and buried secrets. The carnival hums gently, humming with life born from your unresolved feelings, drawing you deeper into its intoxicating embrace. The first attraction you approach is a towering Ferris wheel. Its metal framework twists upward, reaching impossibly high into the velvet dark sky, outlined by the faint glow of crimson bulbs pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. As you step aboard, each cabin becomes a moment trapped in crystal clarity, a perfect loop of regret replaying endlessly. At the top, suspended in cold silence, you gaze out over landscapes of missed opportunities. You see relationships left unmended, friendships unraveled by pride, and loves forsaken by hesitation. The scene shifts as you descend. An argument left unresolved, words left unsaid, haunting you with whispered echoes of what might have been. Each rotation pulls at your heart, compelling you to acknowledge truths you've long suppressed. You step off shaken, but strangely compelled to venture deeper. Each footstep resonates against the soft earth of the midway, leading you next to a carousel, spinning gently beneath the pale, phosphorescent glow of floating lanterns. Horses and mythical creatures glide by, their eyes reflecting unspoken guilt. You climb onto one, feeling its cool porcelain skin beneath your fingers. The carousel spins faster, blurring reality and illusion. Suddenly, you're reliving a decision from your past, a betrayal of trust, or a moment where selfishness eclipsed compassion. Each revolution tightens your chest, forcing you to experience the emotional gravity of your choices again and again. Yet, with every painful recollection, a subtle understanding emerges. The carousel's endless spin is not punishment, but a lesson in accountability, a reminder that you hold the power to break free. Drawn onward, you approach a midway game booth glowing softly in shadows. The operator's face is obscured, his presence both comforting and unsettling. He beckons you closer, his voice warm and gentle. "Here," he says, "the games wager not tickets or prizes, but memories." A dart lands precisely in the center of a spinning wheel, and you realize you've bet a cherished childhood moment, the warmth of your mother's embrace, a treasured afternoon with friends, or the simplicity of laughter shared with someone long departed. As the dart flies, time slows, your breath caught between heartbeats. Will the game grant relief or deepen your loss? Regardless of outcome, you learn the poignant lesson. Memories are treasures of immeasurable worth, and only through risking their loss do you truly appreciate their value. The booth fades behind you, its lesson burning deep into your heart. Next, you find yourself in a hall of mirrors, a place of profound introspection. Each mirror reflects a distorted, hauntingly realistic version of you that never existed. Some show the successes you denied yourself through fear, careers never pursued, passions ignored, dreams suffocated by self-doubt. Others reveal darker paths narrowly avoided, lives tarnished by bitterness or ruined by impulsiveness. The mirrors force you to confront these shadow selves, to understand that every choice made or avoided has defined you. As you traverse the hall, you realize the mirrors are not judges, but teachers, reflecting truth to illuminate self-awareness. They whisper softly that while the past shapes you, it does not bind you. Your future remains unwritten, your potential infinite. Nearby, the roller coaster awaits, a twisting structure of steel and shadow, illuminated faintly by sporadic bolts of lightning. Boarding it is to surrender yourself entirely to regret's chaos. Each drop sends your heart plunging. Each ascent fills your chest with desperate hope. You relive your life's extremes, intense joys overshadowed by deep sadnesses, love tainted by pain, triumph shadowed by fear of inadequacy. Yet, through these highs and lows, clarity emerges. Life's intensity, both painful and beautiful, is inseparable from your humanity. Finally, exhausted but profoundly changed, you approach a quiet corner where a small tent stands alone beneath the moonless sky. Inside sits an old fortune teller, eyes twinkling knowingly. Without speaking, she gently takes your hands and looks deeply into your eyes. In that silent exchange, you realize that every regret you've faced, every sorrow confronted within this carnival, has not been meaningless suffering. It's a catalyst for growth, a pathway toward wisdom. She reveals no prediction, no easy answer, only an understanding that regret, guilt, and sorrow, while painful, guide you toward becoming your truest self. Your heart aches, but now with gratitude, recognizing the transformative power of facing your shadows. As you leave the Carnival of Regret, stepping out beyond its gates, dawn begins gently, promising renewal. The darkness dissipates, replaced by clarity and quiet strength. You carry forward the memories of your visit, not as a burden, but as profound wisdom. You've walked through regret's carnival, survived the spinning rides of guilt, the wagered memories, and the mirror's haunting reflections, emerging stronger, wiser, and ready to face the world anew. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, consider this carefully. Regret is not your enemy, but a teacher, guiding you to acknowledge your past, embrace your present, and consciously shape your future. Remember, though the carnival is hidden deep within, it remains always within reach, ready to reveal truths whenever you're brave enough to enter again. So, ask yourself, when the Carnival of Regret next calls, will you walk away or courageously step inside, ready to confront and transform your shadows once more? The archive of forgotten songs, in the hushed corridors of consciousness, hidden beyond waking perception, lies an extraordinary place, quietly existing within the collective depths of human memory. It is neither physical nor purely imaginary. Rather, it dwells somewhere between dreams and reality, shimmering softly like a distant mirage. We call it the Archive of Forgotten Songs, a repository of melodies composed not by hands, but by dreams themselves, songs that you've never consciously heard, yet somehow find yourself humming by heart. You know this sensation. It visits subtly, at the cusp of sleep or in moments of quiet reverie, a gentle tune drifting through your thoughts, hauntingly familiar yet impossible to place. Perhaps you find yourself murmuring a melody under your breath as you walk down an empty street, surprised by its comforting familiarity. Or maybe you awaken from a dream, the fading echoes of a song still lingering delicately in your mind, just beyond your grasp. These aren't random hallucinations, nor tricks of the imagination. They are whispers from the archive, a vast ethereal vault where forgotten songs silently await rediscovery. But who composes these melodies? The answer lies in the deepest recesses of our collective psyche. Every night, millions of dreamers around the world unknowingly enter this space, adding new compositions, fragments of tunes conceived in the unconscious mind, woven from emotional threads, memories, desires, and fears. As we drift into the realm of dreams, our minds become unfettered, free to create without judgment or inhibition, crafting melodies that effortlessly capture emotions impossible to articulate in words alone. Take, for instance, the case of Paul McCartney's legendary dream song, Yesterday. He awoke one morning with a fully formed melody in his mind, convinced that it must already exist elsewhere. Yet, after exhaustive searching, he found that it was truly unique, a gift from his unconscious. Such experiences aren't rare. Beethoven himself spoke of compositions that appeared fully formed within his mind, melodies whispered from beyond conscious creation. These examples suggest that the archive has always existed, quietly influencing our greatest artistic achievements. Consider another compelling example, the story of Keith Richards and the Rolling Stones' classic Satisfaction. Richards famously woke up one night, recorded a riff that had appeared vividly in his dreams, then promptly fell back asleep. He barely remembered the incident upon awakening, yet on playback discovered a melody destined to become iconic. Stories like these aren't merely anecdotes, they're glimpses into the archive itself, fleeting moments when the boundary between dream and waking life briefly dissolves, allowing us a precious peek at this invisible treasure trove. But why do some melodies reach us clearly, while others remain tantalizingly elusive, hovering just out of reach? Neuroscientists theorize that our unconscious mind continuously creates and processes music, utilizing neural pathways deeply entwined with memory and emotion. Yet, only in rare, liminal moments, between wakefulness and dreaming, can our conscious minds tap into this hidden archive. These instances are fleeting, delicate as soap bubbles. The harder we grasp at them, the quicker they slip away. It is as if the archive protects its contents, revealing melodies only to those patient or fortunate enough to hear them at precisely the right moment. Furthermore, the archive transcends individual experience, suggesting that the melodies we hear aren't solely our own creations, but part of a shared human inheritance. Ancient civilizations spoke of music as a universal language, connecting humanity across cultures and eras. Could it be that the songs drifting from this archive aren't new at all, but timeless echoes shared by countless dreamers throughout history? Imagine melodies crafted centuries ago, humming gently within the minds of medieval troubadours, Renaissance painters, or forgotten poets, now drifting quietly into your dreams, waiting patiently to be rediscovered. Indeed, folklore across many cultures describes music as divine inspiration, whispered by muses or celestial beings into the ears of sleeping artists. Ancient Greeks believed that music existed eternally in a realm beyond human comprehension, accessible only through dreams or mystical states. Similarly, indigenous cultures around the globe describe sacred songs delivered through visions, their melodies serving as bridges connecting humanity to spiritual realms. These traditions hint at a deeper truth. The archive of forgotten songs may well be an eternal reservoir, its melodies transcending linear time and personal identity. This powerful idea reshapes our understanding of creativity itself. Perhaps artists, musicians, and composers aren't merely creators, but explorers, brave adventurers venturing nightly into the archive, returning with fragments of melodies woven into their subconscious by generations past. Each composition, therefore, isn't purely individual genius, but an intricate collaboration between conscious intention and unconscious inheritance, between the waking artist and the dreaming collective. Even more astonishing is the emotional depth these forgotten songs evoke. Unlike conscious compositions, carefully crafted for specific purposes, dream melodies emerge spontaneously, capturing raw, unfiltered emotions we may not even realize we're carrying. They resonate profoundly precisely because they bypass rational thought, speaking directly to the heart. In their gentle cadences, we find echoes of joys forgotten, griefs unexpressed, loves quietly remembered. They are the soundtrack to our innermost selves, melodies that express the ineffable, bringing comfort, catharsis, or clarity in moments when words utterly fail. And yet, despite their emotional power, these melodies remain fragile, ephemeral. We can no more grasp or fully preserve them than we can capture the scent of a passing breeze. Instead, we must accept them as precious, fleeting gifts, moments of pure beauty glimpsed briefly before fading back into the vastness of the archive. It is this ephemeral quality that makes them so compelling, reminding us of life's impermanence and the subtle, profound beauty hidden within everyday existence. Reflect for a moment. Have you ever hummed a tune softly to yourself, certain you've heard it somewhere before, yet unable to recall precisely where or when? Perhaps you've woken from a dream with a melody dancing at the edge of consciousness, slipping gently away even as you reach for it. These moments aren't mere illusions, they're invitations from the archive itself, gentle reminders that beneath our daily lives flows an endless current of forgotten songs, waiting patiently for us to listen. Ultimately, the archive of forgotten songs offers profound wisdom, reminding us that within our unconscious minds lies boundless creativity, timeless connections, and emotional truths waiting to be rediscovered. Every melody drifting softly into your awareness is a whisper from the collective soul of humanity, a song composed by dreamers like you across countless lifetimes. Each tune you hum, however briefly remembered, connects you to an infinite chorus, voices spanning generations, uniting us all in the shared mystery and wonder of existence. Next time, you find yourself softly singing a melody you've never consciously heard. Pause a moment, close your eyes, listen deeply, and realize that you're standing at the threshold of the archive. Let its gentle harmonies wash over you, knowing you've touched something extraordinary, eternal, and deeply human, a melody composed by dreams themselves, woven into your very heart. Cemetery of Waking Worlds. Imagine walking through a place hidden deep within the shadows of consciousness. A graveyard unlike any you've ever encountered. This is not a resting place for the physical bodies of the departed, nor a memorial ground marking lives that once walked the earth. Instead, the Cemetery of Waking Worlds holds the remains of dreams. Dreams so intensely vivid, so real, that they came dangerously close to breaking free from the confines of imagination and bursting into existence, creating entirely new realities. Yet, each one met its end with the first rays of dawn, forever silenced by the harsh clarity of daylight. As you wander among these tombstones, you realize they're not just stones, but markers of countless lost possibilities. Universes that almost lived, worlds that came within a breath of reality. Each gravestone represents a vivid dream, a life nearly lived, moments that seemed so tangible that upon waking, you questioned whether they truly existed elsewhere, if only briefly. Here lie endless realities extinguished at sunrise, resting quietly in a twilight of memory, preserved only in your fading recollection. Consider one gravestone carved with the faintest outline of a city, an urban landscape bustling with towering spires, luminous skyscrapers wrapped in hues unknown to your waking eyes. In this dream, you wandered through streets whose names you recognized instantly yet cannot recall upon waking. You conversed freely with people you felt you'd known your entire life, friends whose faces now blur into obscurity. In that vivid sleep-induced life, you had a purpose, a profound sense of belonging. It felt more authentic, more real than your everyday existence. Yet, in the blink of an eye, dawn shattered that illusion, pulling you violently back into the cold routine of morning. Nearby, another grave holds the remnants of a journey you took across an ocean unlike any on Earth, sailing upon waves composed of liquid stars, guided by constellations you've never seen in the waking world. The scent of that sea, the sweet metallic tang of starlight, still haunts your senses long after waking. You distinctly recall the salt spray on your cheeks, the warmth of cosmic currents pulling at your vessel, steering you toward an island shimmering on the horizon, a promised land of answers. But just before landing, reality asserted itself, wrenching you back to your bed, the distant waves replaced by sheets tangled around your restless limbs. In this cemetery, every dream that almost birthed another reality is remembered, preserved as faint echoes etched into stone. The air here feels dense with longing, heavy with what might have been. With each step, you feel increasingly overwhelmed by a haunting truth. Dreams might not merely be illusions conjured by a sleeping brain. What if each dream is a seed, a fragile beginning of a genuine reality, one that blooms or withers based solely on your waking? Could each sunrise be not only a beginning, but also an executioner, sentencing alternate universes to oblivion with ruthless regularity? There is compelling science and philosophy hidden within this poetic madness. The theory of the multiverse suggests that our universe might be just one among countless others, each branching off from pivotal choices, moments, and yes, even dreams. Quantum mechanics, with its mysterious concepts of entanglement and superposition, hints tantalizingly at the existence of realities born from possibility, lying just beyond our perception. What if dreams are glimpses into these alternate worlds, fleeting windows into universes running parallel to our own? Every night, when your eyes close and your mind drifts, perhaps your consciousness journeys briefly across this infinite cosmic web. Your dreams become voyages into these alternate worlds, and on particularly powerful nights, your presence there becomes so profound that the line between imagined and real grows dangerously thin. Yet inevitably, dawn arrives, closing the gateway, leaving only echoes in your subconscious, a bittersweet residue that lingers, begging you to remember. But what if, within these echoes lies a deeper truth? There exist countless accounts of people dreaming of places they've never visited, only to stumble upon them years later in reality, frozen in awe as the vivid recollection floods their minds. Others experience dreams so intense that upon waking, their everyday life feels like the illusion, a pale imitation of something far more meaningful. Perhaps you felt this yourself, waking abruptly from a world where you knew love or loss so profoundly that your waking life seems dull and insubstantial by comparison. These experiences fuel a haunting idea. What if your waking reality is simply the dream of another version of you, existing in another universe, one who wakes when you sleep, living their day as you dream your night? Perhaps we are all travelers through an endless corridor of mirrors, reflecting infinite versions of ourselves, each dreaming the other into existence. This cemetery reminds us that dreams hold profound power, not merely as reflections of our subconscious fears or desires, but as genuine gateways into realities that nearly became our own. Each morning, with brutal efficiency, we unwittingly close these doorways, sealing the fate of worlds we've glimpsed only briefly, condemning them to a silent eternity marked only by these solemn stones. As you prepare to leave the cemetery of waking worlds, you pause at one last gravestone. It stands apart, grander, etched deeply with a figure who feels intimately familiar yet utterly unknown. Your heart aches, feeling inexplicable loss. Perhaps this marks a world where you chose differently, a life you nearly lived, filled with paths left untaken, loves left unexplored, dreams never realized. And so, you walk away, haunted by a profound realization. Dreams matter. Each night, you return to this cosmic intersection, the borderland between imagination and reality. Every sunrise carries consequences, quietly profound and infinitely bittersweet. The cemetery of waking worlds stands as a testament to the power and fragility of our innermost visions, urging you never to take dreams lightly, for each one you abandon at dawn becomes another silent stone, another lost world whispering eternally of what might have been. The wind that whispers truths. There's a wind that doesn't belong to any season. It isn't bound by weather patterns or mountains or ocean tides. It doesn't rustle leaves, whistle through windows, or howl in the corners of abandoned houses. It is quiet, so quiet that most people never notice it at all. But once you do, you never forget it, because this wind doesn't just touch your skin, it reaches inside you. They call it the wind that whispers truths. It comes without warning, often during moments of silence. Maybe you're walking home late at night, heart heavy with something you can't quite name. Maybe you're staring out a window, the world outside too quiet, too still. Or maybe it finds you when you've stopped pretending, when your defenses have finally crumbled and you're ready. even if you don't know it, to hear what you've been hiding from. It doesn't speak in words, not exactly, but the moment it brushes past you, something shifts. There's a weightlessness in your chest and an unease that coils in your stomach. You don't hear the truth. It unfolds in your mind, layered like smoke, sharp like shattered glass. It's not something you can explain, only something you can feel. And what you feel is the end of the lies you've been living. Because that's what the wind does. It strips you bare. It doesn't care about your comfort, your pride, or the careful illusions you've spent a lifetime building. It pulls at the threads of your identity, loosens the knots of your beliefs, peels back every justification you've ever whispered to yourself in the dark. It tells you the love you fought for was never real, not for them and not for you. It tells you your success is built on compromise, not brilliance. It tells you that the person in the mirror, the one you dress, present, and protect, is a mask, and then it waits. Because the truth once uncovered doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It just lingers. And in that silence, you feel everything you've refused to feel for years. The buried guilt, the quiet self-loathing, the ache of loneliness you laughed away. The memory of that one choice you pretend you had no control over. The wind blows through you, and in its wake, it leaves nothing untouched. One man followed it across continents. He had always been chasing meaning, through religion, through books, through substances. But when the wind found him, he didn't hear a divine voice or feel cosmic warmth. Instead, he felt empty. Completely, utterly empty. He realized his entire journey had been avoidance, dressing up fear as wisdom. He sat in silence for 2 days after that. No food, no words, just a raw, agonizing stillness. When he emerged, he didn't speak of enlightenment. He simply said, "It took everything I thought I was, and I'm not sure what's left." Another woman felt it during childbirth. Just as her daughter's first cry broke the air, the wind touched her. And in that moment, she understood the crushing weight of her lineage, the unresolved trauma she was about to pass down. The resentment she held toward her own mother, buried beneath smiles. She wept not from joy, but from the sudden knowing that she had to break the cycle or doom another soul to repeat it. That night, the hospital room felt colder than any winter. The wind doesn't choose the strong or the wise. It finds those on the brink, the ones whose silence has become unbearable, the ones whose smiles don't quite reach their eyes anymore, the ones who whisper to themselves at night, "I can't keep doing this," and hope no one hears. The wind hears, and if you follow it, if you surrender, if you let it lead you, don't expect transformation. Expect devastation. Because the wind isn't a guide, it's a demolition. It won't show you your destiny. It won't affirm your dreams. It won't whisper encouragement. It will only show you what is real and remove what is not. It's a quiet violence, a still death. And yes, it leaves you hollow. That's the part no one talks about, the hollowing. When everything you thought mattered is gone, when your relationships crumble under the weight of honesty, when your ambition withers because you realize it was born from fear, not passion, you are left with a silence so vast it swallows you. People think truth brings peace, but truth, in its rawest form, brings emptiness, because we've built our lives atop illusions, and when those fall, the ground disappears beneath us. The wind knows this, and still it comes, because some things are more important than comfort, because sometimes the hollow is the beginning. In that emptiness, some begin again. They learn to speak with honesty that shakes their voice. They love with vulnerability that terrifies them. They build not to impress, but to express. They stop chasing meaning and start living it, minute by minute, breath by breath. But not all return from the wind. Some lose their way in the truths they uncover. They see the world's masks and can no longer smile. They see the hollowness behind status, the performance behind kindness, the desperation behind joy, and they retreat. They become silent, brittle, broken in ways no one can see, because no one else heard the wind. No one else understands. And that loneliness, that knowing what others are not ready to see, is its own kind of exile. So, if the wind finds you, be ready. Ready to lose who you think you are. Ready to grieve the self you've built. Ready to live in silence before you speak again. Because the truth doesn't comfort. It cuts. But it also clears. And in that clearing, if you are patient, if you are gentle, something new might grow. Something real. something unshakable, not a version of you designed for acceptance, but a being forged in the quiet fire of truth. So listen, if you feel that silent breeze at your back, don't run, don't chase, just let it move through you. Let it show you what's been hidden. And when it leaves, and you feel the hollow echo where your illusions used to be, don't be afraid. That emptiness is not your ending, it's your beginning. Gravityless Orchard. In a quiet valley untouched by time and unbound by gravity, there exists a place that defies logic and bends the nature of memory itself. The locals call it the Gravityless Orchard. It's hidden, intentionally perhaps, at the convergence of magnetic anomalies, nestled between two cliffs that hum at night. There, fruits do not cling to trees, but drift in the air like lanterns, suspended by forces we cannot name. They bob gently in invisible currents, casting long, strange shadows under the silver light of a sun that seems too still, too aware. But it is not the defiance of gravity that makes this place so feared, so revered. It is what happens when you take a bite, because these are no ordinary fruits. The moment your teeth pierce their shimmering skins, the orchard gives you a memory, not a dream, not a fantasy, a real memory, one pulled from somewhere or someone, and you feel it entirely. The heartbeat, the tears, the laughter, the trauma, the ecstasy, everything. Sometimes, it's a forgotten piece of your own past, like the smell of your grandmother's house during monsoon rains, or the way your childhood pet looked at you right before it died. Sometimes, it's a fragment of another life altogether. A stranger's wedding night in a forgotten language, a dying soldier's final thought on an alien battlefield, a child's terror as they're separated from their parents during an interstellar evacuation. These memories aren't just visual, they're experiential. You live them for a few fleeting seconds, and then they become yours, fully, permanently. Some people come here seeking answers, some come chasing closure, others come addicted to the flood of borrowed life, like junkies injecting identity straight into their veins. One woman, a former neuroscientist named Leora, reportedly spent 6 days in the orchard without sleep. When they found her, she was murmuring in 5 languages, none of which she previously knew. She claimed to be 5 people and a bird. Eventually, she disappeared. Not metaphorically, literally. One night, she simply vanished, leaving only a levitating bite of fruit behind. No one has fully explained where the memories come from. Are they echoes from alternate dimensions? Bleed-throughs from the collective unconscious? The neural residue of other minds, perhaps alien, collected by the orchard like pollen by bees? Some believe the orchard is sentient, testing us, feeding us not sustenance, but stories. Stories that rewrite who we are. Because every time you consume a memory, you change. Not just mentally, but biologically. Scans taken of frequent orchard visitors have shown neural growth patterns unaccounted for by any known process. Sections of the brain lighting up in rhythms seen only in advanced AI simulations, or coma patients caught between awareness and oblivion. One man, an artist named Quinn, painted obsessively after a single bite, canvases of cities that do not exist, full of skies with twin moons and birds made of glass. He died shortly after completing his 100th painting, his final words whispered in a language no one recognized. When a linguist later ran the recording through pattern analysis, they found an exact match. In a transmission intercepted by NASA in 1977 from deep space. A transmission never decoded, until Quinn, who'd never studied astrophysics, apparently spoke it in his sleep. It's impossible to regulate the orchard. Governments have tried. Fences collapse, GPS goes haywire, maps rearrange themselves. Drones malfunction above it. The place resists classification, like it's alive, and doesn't want to be pinned down. Some even claim the orchard moves, that it appears in different places across decades, never staying longer than it must, and always in places where the veil between mind and matter feels thin. But not all who visit return the same. There are cautionary tales of people biting into fruit and being overwritten, their original memories washed away by a stronger personality. One case involved a child named Niall who disappeared for hours in the orchard. When he returned, he no longer recognized his mother. He answered to a different name, refused to eat anything except raw, starlight-shaped fruit, and wrote glowing glyphs on the walls of his room. Eventually, he stopped responding entirely, just sat for days, eyes unfocused, whispering memories that belonged to civilizations long gone. And yet, people still come, because there's a temptation in knowing what it's like to live outside your own head, to taste joy untainted by your own history, to cry someone else's tears, to feel love that wasn't meant for you, but now exists within you all the same. The most haunting part? Sometimes the memory you receive isn't one from the past. There are rare reports of people biting fruit and seeing things that haven't yet happened. Future wars, cities falling into the sky, a world with no sun but a sky full of whispers. And sometimes, just sometimes, people act on what they see. A woman in Belarus pulled her family from their home minutes before an undetected gas leak exploded. She claimed she saw it in the orchard. A child predicted a solar flare disruption days before it crippled communication in her region. Are these visions, or are the fruits giving out warnings? Or are we not biting into memories, but possibilities? Perhaps the orchard is not a place at all, but a gateway, a bridge between lived life and unlived potential, a neural bloom that floats between timelines, disguised as fruit, offering us temporary access to an infinite library of being, a library without curation, without translation, without explanation, one where stories are the only truth, and even they change depending on who eats them. Maybe it's a mirror, a paradox, a reflection of everything we are and everything we could be. Because when you eat from the Gravityless Orchard, you don't just borrow someone else's past. You plant a seed in your own, a seed that grows into something foreign and beautiful and terrifying. And the orchard? It watches. It waits. It remembers. After all, if memories can float, what's stopping them from choosing where they land or who they become? And next time you recall something that doesn't quite belong to you, a melody you've never heard, a voice you recognize from nowhere, a face in your dreams that feels too vivid to be fiction, maybe it's not your imagination. Maybe you've already tasted the fruit. You just don't remember. Yet. The mirror horizon. Imagine standing on a flat, endless plain. No buildings, no trees, no wind. Just you, and a perfect mirror of the world. Everything you see, clouds, birds, mountains in the distance, even a flicker of lightning far off, reflects exactly beneath your feet like you're walking on polished glass. But there's one thing missing from the reflection. You. You walk. The sky ripples beneath each step. Your shadow exists only in this world, not in the mirror below. You raise your hand. Nothing rises with it. You crouch. Nothing mirrors that. It's like you're invisible in that reflected realm. A ghost looking into a world that does not acknowledge your presence. And then you realize this is no ordinary mirror. This is the mirror horizon. And it is said to reflect truth, not form. That's where the unsettling part begins. People who have walked the mirror horizon speak of a subtle feeling, a pull, not physical but psychological, a whisper in your bones that something is wrong. You're being watched, not by the world around you, but by the version of you that should be there and isn't. The version you try not to acknowledge, the one who's made every wrong choice, every silent betrayal, every whispered lie to yourself. The mirror horizon shows everything around you with mathematical perfection, except you. And yet, it somehow reflects everything about you. Think about that. What would a mirror reflect if it didn't care about your face, your clothes, your hairstyle, but instead reflected the sum of your contradictions, the lies you've buried, the regrets you dress up as lessons, the parts of you that you pretend aren't there when others are watching? Now, imagine walking forward, step by step. People say the farther you walk into the mirror horizon, the more you start to feel detached, like your thoughts echo before you think them. Your memories flicker like faulty film reels. You forget who you are, and in the process, you remember things you never lived. One man said he saw a reflection of himself from a life he never had, working a job he never trained for, holding the hand of a woman he never met. Another woman claimed she heard laughter, her own, coming from below, as if the version of her in the mirror had escaped and she was the copy left behind. These aren't hallucinations, not in the traditional sense. They're psychological paradoxes brought into vivid clarity. And then comes the final moment. You reach a point on the horizon where everything changes. You take one more step, and suddenly, you're in the mirror. You become your reflection. You see your own face for the first time, but it isn't relief you feel. It's horror. Because the face looking back is still not you. It's the version of you that your deepest fears have always imagined. The one built from suppressed trauma, unspoken wishes, buried rage, and neglected dreams. It smiles. And you understand? You haven't crossed a border. You've become the reflection, because the real you was hollow all along. The mirror didn't fail to reflect you. It rejected the illusion you carried. And when that illusion finally shattered, only then could it reflect what remained. This entire event isn't just psychological, it's existential. Philosophers have debated the mirror horizon for decades. Is it a real place, a quantum event, a mental phenomenon, or is it a cosmic metaphor made manifest? Some theories suggest the mirror is a sentient dimension, one that calculates your existence based on your internal congruence. If who you believe you are doesn't match who you truly are, the mirror doesn't reflect you because, by its logic, you don't exist. Others believe it's a rift in perception, a manifestation of pure self-awareness induced by environmental stimuli, a landscape so uniform and reflective that it overrides your ego and dissolves the boundary between conscious identity and subconscious truth. You don't disappear. You unravel. Let's take a deeper psychological example. When you stare into a normal mirror, you're not seeing yourself. You're seeing a reversed projection of what your brain expects to be you. But what if a mirror could see past what your brain is telling you? What if it could perceive the hidden trauma in your posture, the suppressed emotions in the angle of your eyes, the weight of unlived lives in the way your breath pauses? The mirror horizon may be that. A diagnostic tool of the soul. In one recorded case, a woman walked the mirror horizon for 6 hours. When she returned, she said nothing. She stared blankly, lips slightly parted, hands shaking, not from fear, but from realization. Days later, she scribbled a single phrase on a wall before vanishing. I was never me. Can you imagine what that means? Not I changed, not I discovered something, but I was never me. That's not an epiphany. That's a psychological collapse, the total undoing of the self as an illusion. And yet, there's something oddly beautiful about that. Because if who you were wasn't truly you, then what potential lies in who you could become now that the mask is gone? The mirror horizon breaks you, but it breaks the mask, not the core. It wipes away the constructs built by culture, trauma, expectation, and habit. It shows you that your reflection isn't missing because it failed, but because it waited. It waited for you to arrive honestly. But beware. Not everyone returns from the horizon. Some walk too far, believing they can outpace the void inside them. Others are mesmerized by the echo of their unlived lives, and some simply dissolve, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, lost in a reflection they never understood. This is not a mirror of appearance, it is a mirror of being. So, what would you see if you walked across that landscape of flawless reflection? Would you see the person you pretend to be, the one you perform for others? Or would the mirror show no one? And if that happened, would you keep walking? Or would you turn away, terrified not of the mirror, but of the silence where your soul was supposed to be? Perhaps the real fear isn't being unreflected. It's realizing you never cast a reflection in the first place, because sometimes the mirror tells the truth by showing nothing at all. The Whispering Shoreline. They say the shoreline sings at night, not with the howl of wind or the rhythm of waves, but in whispers, tiny voices that echo from within scattered shells, half buried in moonlit sand, waiting for someone, anyone, who dares to listen. This isn't myth. This is real. And once you've heard them, you're never truly alone again. These whispers don't come from the sea. They come from somewhere far deeper. Your dreams, your memories, your fears. The shoreline remembers what you forget. Imagine standing at the edge of the world, where ocean meets silence. You bend down, pick up a shell. It's cold, smooth, familiar. You press it to your ear, expecting the usual sound of the sea. But instead, you hear a voice. Not just any voice, your mother's. The way she sounded when you were 7, humming a lullaby you've long since forgotten. But you didn't dream that. Or did you? That's the thing about the Whispering Shoreline. It doesn't invent, it recalls. It dredges up fragments of dreams you don't even remember having. Echoes of choices you almost made. It speaks in riddles, in warnings, in broken lullabies, sometimes in your own voice, speaking a version of yourself that never came to be, a doctor, an artist, a murderer, a lover, a ghost. There are documented encounters, though few are willing to speak of them publicly. A man in Portugal who claimed he found a shell that whispered coordinates to a sunken ship. He followed them, diving alone into freezing waters, and surfaced holding an antique compass with his initials etched into the back, though he swore he had never owned one. He later went missing. Only the shell remained on his boat's deck. A woman in Japan, grieving the loss of her twin sister, walked the beach every evening at sunset. One night, she heard her sister's voice from a pink spiral shell, repeating a line from a childhood poem only they knew. The poem warned her to beware the third wave. Days later, she survived a freak rogue wave surge that swept away an entire beachside cafe. Everyone else was gone. She alone had stepped back just moments before. Skeptics say it's just pareidolia, our minds finding patterns, mistaking white noise for meaning. But that fails to explain the synchronicities. The way these voices know things you haven't told anyone, the precise tone of a dead loved one's laugh, the cryptic advice that turns out to be strangely relevant. One shell whispered, "Don't take the red umbrella." A man ignored it, walked into a lightning storm, and was struck. Survived, but only barely. The umbrella's metal tip was melted. And it's not always warnings. Some people report comfort. A girl plagued by night terrors found peace after a shell told her, "He's gone now. You're safe." She said it was her childhood teddy bear's voice, but older, wiser. Her nightmares stopped. No one can explain why. Others hear riddles. One shell repeated the phrase, "What walks on mirrors but leaves no reflection?" The man who heard it became obsessed, scribbling drawings and theories on his walls. Eventually, he invented a new kind of optical illusion that broke depth perception, now studied in neuroscience labs. He credits the shell. Others call it madness. There's a pattern. These shells appear only at dusk, and only when the tide recedes unusually far. You won't find them during the day. And if you take one home, the voice fades within hours. They must remain on the shore, as if bound by some tether of dream and sand. Perhaps they are thresholds, thin membranes between waking and dream, memory and invention. Perhaps they are not shells at all, but something that wears the shape of shells. One theory suggests the voices originate from a realm of shared dream memory, a layer of collective consciousness where all forgotten dreams drift. The shoreline, then, is merely an access point, like a psychic antenna tuned to the frequencies of our sleeping minds. When you press a shell to your ear, it doesn't play back a sound, it transmits. It synchronizes with you, pulls what resonates deepest, a regret, a forgotten promise, a buried trauma, or a question you never dared ask. But why here? Why this shoreline? Some say it has to do with magnetism. Others blame tectonic rifts that open momentary windows to quantum fields of memory. But maybe it's simpler. Maybe it's because the ocean has always been humanity's mirror, a place where we toss our thoughts, our losses, our offerings, and sometimes something tosses them back. People who have heard the whispers report a sense of being watched, but not in fear, in recognition. As though the sea, or whatever inhabits it, sees you for who you are and who you might have been. As though it knows your other lives, the ones you lived in dreams, the ones you denied. There are warnings, too, not to stay too long. Some voices urge you back. Others beg you to stay. One woman claimed she heard her unborn daughter's voice saying, "Not yet, Mama." She walked away from the cliff's edge, trembling. A week later, a pregnancy test turned positive. Her doctor confirmed the timing. She now calls her daughter Mira, short for Mirage. No scientific instrument has captured these voices. Recordings return only static. But witnesses, hundreds of them across continents, describe the same effect, the same shell, the same faint scent of salt and something sweeter, like memory itself, crystallized and half vanished. The shoreline whispers not for fame, not for science, but for those who need it most. And maybe that's what makes it real. A phenomenon not of matter, but of meaning. A miracle not in what it is, but in what it reveals. So if you ever find yourself alone at the edge of the ocean, and the tide is low, and the wind has fallen still, bend down. Pick up the shell that calls to you. Press it gently to your ear. and listen. But remember, some truths once heard cannot be unheard. Some riddles echo through a lifetime, some warnings save you, others mark you, and some voices were never meant to return. You were never just walking along the sand. You were being remembered. The Ember Clock. They say time marches forward, dragging us endlessly with it. But not here. Not at the Ember Clock. Imagine a fire that doesn't crackle toward tomorrow, but retracts into the ashes of yesterday. The flames shrink with every breath you take, glowing hotter as they die, not dimmer. And as this fire burns backward, so does everything you once knew about memory, identity, and the boundaries of consciousness. You awaken in a place that feels both ancient and unborn. At the center of a vast obsidian chamber, a single fire dances. But instead of building, it consumes itself in reverse. Sparks fall upward, embers fade into whole branches, and the logs rise from ash into pristine form before vanishing altogether. The fire, it seems, is unwriting itself. And with it, so are you. You don't remember how you arrived here, that much is clear, but something in your chest tells you that you've stood before this flame before, many times, perhaps endlessly. There's a sense that the fire isn't simply a spectacle. It's a clock, a countdown, a reminder. When the last ember folds into silence, something vital vanishes. Not your life, not your body, but your identity, your very sense of self. This is the Ember Clock. And every dream you've ever had of forgetting, of waking with only fragments of who you were, that all stems from this place. It is said that the Ember Clock doesn't exist in space, or even in time, but in the seam between them, where your mind drifts in moments of deepest sleep, when your brain shuts down the lights of the day and opens the hidden corridors of the psyche. At first, you don't notice what it's taking. Your name, your favorite color, your grandmother's laugh. A face from high school you haven't thought about in years. Gone. Not erased, but folded inward, like paper burned at the edges until all that remains is a curl of smoke. And the more the fire shrinks, the more of you it absorbs. You try to fight it, don't you? You try to speak your name aloud, but the moment you do, the syllables dissolve in your throat like sand in water. You reach for memories, but your hands pass through them. Images without context. Voices without mouths, all of it slipping away, backward. Here, time isn't linear, it's circular. No, it's recursive. You realize that dreams don't just show you stories, they store them. And when the fire of the Ember Clock recedes, it takes the storage with it. You feel yourself becoming less real, but oddly not frightened. There's a calm here, a seductive numbness in forgetting. Maybe that's the danger. Because what happens when you forget you want to remember? Some believe the Ember Clock is a natural phenomenon, something that exists in the deepest layers of REM sleep, where the brain loops and rewrites itself. Others think it's a place of judgment, that you only find it when you've held on too long to who you were, refusing change, growth, or grief. The clock doesn't punish you. It frees you from yourself. There are stories of people waking up from dreams drenched in tears, unable to say why. Of artists who lose entire styles overnight. Authors who forget the plot of books they spent years writing. Lovers who wake next to someone and feel like a stranger. Some say they touched the edge of the Ember Clock. Some say they stayed too long. And here's the paradox. It isn't just about loss. It's about cycles. Because when the fire finally dies, and you've been stripped of everything you thought made you you, something extraordinary happens. Silence, stillness, and then a spark. A single flame, igniting anew, not in the past, but in possibility. You wake up, and you don't remember the dream, but you feel different. A weight lifted, or perhaps exchanged. You smile at someone you'd given up on. You write something you've never written before. You love, without fear of the past. Because the Ember Clock didn't just erase you, it reset you. But is that peace? Or is it a kind of death? If who we are is just an accumulation of memory, then who are we without it? A fresh slate, a lie, or something truer, unburdened by context. This is the unsettling truth. The Ember Clock may burn every night, not just in one dream but in many, not just for you, but for all of us. A shared clock, a collective fire. Memory isn't static, it's breathing, and sometimes it exhales. And if tonight you feel your dreams burning in reverse, if you find yourself chasing memories that recoil from your touch, stop, watch, listen, because it may not be a dream at all. It might be the Ember Clock, and it's nearly out. Will you remember this? Or will this too vanish when the final ember flickers away? Library of Unwritten Lives. There's a place beyond dreams, beyond even imagination, a place untouched by time or fate. You don't walk into it. You drift. You arrive not by choice, but by question. The kind of question that whispers late at night. What if I had said yes? What if I had stayed? What if I had never left? This place is called the Library of Unwritten Lives. It's not bound by architecture. It stretches in all directions endlessly, lit by a golden hush that feels like memory turned to light. The air hums with possibility, and every step you take echoes with lives you never lived. Shelf upon shelf towers above and below, spiraling into eternity. Each shelf holds books, and each book holds a life. But not the life you know. No. These are the other versions of you, the selves that almost were. One book may bear the title, The You Who Chose Music Over Medicine. You open it and feel the weight of 1,000 concerts, the ache of calloused fingers, the applause that never came, and the one moment you made someone cry with a song. The pages pulse like heartbeats, because each one is a life unlived, but not unfelt. These are not fiction. They're echoes. Another volume, The You Who Stayed in That City for Love, the scent of rain on subway metal, her laugh in the early mornings, the terrible silence when she stopped laughing. It's all there. A life so vivid it makes your current one feel like a pale reflection. You try to remember who you are now, but the library is already drawing you deeper and deeper. Some books are thin, tiny decisions that would have created small ripples. You took the bus instead of the train. You said yes instead of no. A different stranger became a friend. A day turned from ordinary to unforgettable. Others are massive tomes, entire lives born from one seismic shift. You moved across the world. You followed your fear instead of your ambition. You never met the person who shaped you most. Or worse, you met them and lost them all the same. Here, regrets take physical form, but so do hopes. That's the strangest part. These aren't just reflections of bad choices or avoided pain. Some of them are beautiful. Some of them are better. And that is where the true ache lies. Because the library doesn't just remind you of what you avoided. It shows you what you missed. There's a version of you who stood up for themselves that one day you didn't. A version who kept writing. A version who dared to fail and found brilliance in the fall. And when you read their story, you don't just see their life. You feel it, deep in your bones, like déjà vu that hurts. You realize that all these paths were once yours. Almost. People who claim they've touched the library often wake up with odd sensations, like grief for someone they never knew, or longing for a city they've never been to. Some report phantom skills, a sudden pull toward painting, a melody in their head they swear they once composed. Others wake with tears and no memory of why. Science might explain it as brain pattern overlaps, dreams sifting through neurons, combining memory and fantasy. But if that were true, why do so many people feel the same thing? A sense of being watched not by strangers, but by versions of themselves. It's said that the books whisper if you listen closely. Not words, but pulses, emotions, heartbeats. And the longer you stay, the more you forget your current self. Because in here, every self is real. Every page is proof that you could have been someone else entirely. Not better, not worse, just different. And this leads to a terrifying thought. If these versions of you exist here, written and waiting, is there someone else, you, right now, on someone else's shelf? Are you the unwritten life in another version's library? Is this moment you're living the result of a road not taken by another you? In that way, maybe all lives are unwritten until they're lived, and maybe even then, the ink never dries. Some believe the library is a manifestation of the soul's curiosity, that in our deepest unconscious, we store every path we ever considered, every fork in every road. And in our most lucid dreams, or moments of deepest meditation, we wander these halls to remember that life is not linear, but infinite. But others fear it, because the library is also a place of mourning, the mourning of lost potential, of the person you could have become had you been just a little braver, a little more patient, a little more reckless. It forces a confrontation not with the world, but with your own hesitation. There is one final room in the library. Few reach it, fewer remember it. It's said to hold a single book titled The You Who Knew All the Others. This book doesn't tell a life. It tells a choice. The choice to keep living your life, fully, intentionally, without looking back. You see, the library of unwritten lives isn't here to punish you. It's here to remind you. Every day you breathe is another page you're writing. Every risk you take, every apology you give, every sunrise you chase, that's you choosing to keep this version alive. The real tragedy isn't in the lives you didn't live. It's in the pages you stop writing now, out of fear or regret. So, if you ever find yourself there, in the quiet aisles of that infinite place, don't stay too long. Let yourself feel the weight of what could have been. Let it humble you. Let it hurt a little. Then close the book, return it to its shelf, and walk away. Because your story isn't finished yet. And as long as you're still here, you're the author. The DNA stairs. Every step you take is a choice. Every breath, a branching path. You may not realize it, but somewhere in the architecture of your mind, a tower is being built. One you can't see, but always feel. The DNA stairs. A double helix structure coiled inside your subconscious, rising with every decision you make. It doesn't go up toward heaven or down toward hell. It spirals inward, twisting tighter the deeper your dream becomes. The more certain you are of who you are, the more the staircase constricts, until there's barely room to move. This is not a metaphor. This is how your mind encodes meaning when you're deep in REM sleep, when your consciousness lets go of logic and wraps itself in something older, something biological. Dreams, for all their wildness, follow a genetic rhythm, a logic buried in the base pairs of your identity. Each rung of this staircase, each loop of the helix, is shaped by the weight of your lived experiences and the shadows of all the ones you never had. In your waking life, decisions fork outward, go left or right, stay or leave, say something or remain silent. But in the architecture of the dream, the DNA stairs coil around those choices, storing them, compressing them. The deeper you go, the more those decisions begin to feel inevitable. You walk up or down, and with every step, reality rewrites itself, bending around the gravity of what you've chosen. Why DNA? Why that shape? Because DNA is not just the blueprint of your body. It is the ancient language of memory, not your memories, not even human memories, but the genetic echoes of every organism that came before you. Somewhere inside you is the faint pulse of a trilobite that crawled along the seafloor 500 million years ago, and the scream of an ape watching the stars. These aren't hallucinations. They are inherited data, and your dream self, climbing the staircase, accesses them in flashes. Sometimes they appear as faces you've never seen but somehow recognize. Sometimes as words you don't understand but feel haunted by. Have you ever dreamed of climbing? Of spiraling stairs that never end? That's not just architectural anxiety. It's your internal archive trying to resolve something. Maybe you're carrying a guilt that never belonged to you. Maybe your subconscious is attempting to climb backward through the genome, to undo a decision made 1,000 generations ago. You ascend the helix, not to reach the top, but to remember what lies at the bottom. And here's where it gets stranger. Some dreamers have reported getting stuck. Not physically, but temporally. They ascend for what feels like days, only to discover that with each revolution of the staircase, their age fluctuates. 10 steps, and they're a child again. Another 5, and they're old. 30 steps up, and suddenly they're a version of themselves who never dropped out of school, who never left the relationship, who never said no that night. These aren't just imaginary selves. They are realized permutations, compressed simulations of your alternative biological futures, written in the spiral code. The staircase begins to tighten, not just in form, but in consequence. As you climb deeper, the air becomes heavier with meaning. You begin to notice doors etched into the helix, each one representing a moment you chose to forget. You open one, and you're back in a childhood bedroom, watching yourself cry over something small, until it's not small anymore. Another door reveals the face of someone you loved, but pushed away. Another leads to a life you never lived, but always dreamed about. Here's the paradox. the deeper the staircase coils, the more you believe you're ascending. Your dream self insists you're moving upward, but in truth, you're drilling into the genetic bedrock of your identity. There is no top. There is no final room. Only the tightening of possibilities until you're forced to make the choice that wakes you up. Because here's the catch. If you reach the end, if you climb so deep that the helix collapses into a singular strand, then your waking self forgets everything. Your name, your memories, even the fact that you ever dreamed. That's the cost of climbing too far. The DNA staircase is a map of forgetting as much as it is a memory structure. It doesn't want to be understood. It wants to be respected. Some have theorized that the DNA stairs are the subconscious manifestation of epigenetics. Your brain's attempt to physically visualize how your trauma, your joy, your regrets imprint themselves onto your cells. A kind of mental architecture for the ways your life is marked, not just in memory, but in flesh. And when you dream deeply, your mind retreats to the only structure that knows how to contain such contradictions, the helix. But the danger is real. Dream climbers have described the moment of collapse, the moment the staircase becomes a noose. It begins with a tightening in the chest, then a sense that time is folding in on itself. You begin to meet versions of yourself who hate you, who blame you, who tried something different and paid for it. The spiral no longer feels like a path. It becomes a loop, and every step is a memory trying to overwrite the one before it. What happens if you fall? That's the most haunting part. You never hit the bottom. You just keep falling, endlessly, through the same revolutions until your mind convinces itself that this is your reality, that the staircase was the world, that there never was an outside. And then you wake up, feeling like something was lost, something important, but you can't quite name it. You walk through your day distracted, disoriented, feeling heavier than you should. You pass by someone on the street who seems familiar, but you don't know why. You pause at an intersection, unsure which direction you meant to go. These are the echoes of the stairs. The dream is over, but the imprint remains. So, tonight when you fall asleep, ask yourself, will you climb? And if you do, how far will you go before the helix tightens so much that even your dreams forget who you are? Remember, the staircase is always there, inside you, coiled, waiting. And every decision you make is another step, another twist, another turn in the tower that is you. The Rollercoaster of Echoes. The Rollercoaster of Echoes is not merely a ride, it's a descent into the forgotten corners of consciousness, where memory, emotion, and identity blur until they are indistinguishable. Imagine a vast structure, coiled like a serpent in the mist, rising into skies that never stay the same. Each car that plunges down its metallic veins doesn't just scream with the thrill of gravity. It echoes something much older, much stranger. The grief of a stranger's funeral, the joy of a birth you didn't witness, the cold panic of a war never fought by your hand, but felt somehow in your bones. This isn't fiction. It's the lived sensation many report in dreams, déjà vu, or even random emotional spikes with no known trigger. A laugh that feels foreign but familiar. A tear that falls for no one you know. The Rollercoaster of Echoes is the metaphor for something deeper. A collective resonance, a shared neural field, a theory whispered about in cognitive science and parapsychology alike, the emotional entanglement of human beings across time, space, and memory. To ride this coaster is to surrender control. The first drop might throw you into a sudden fear so specific, say, a fear of water that drowns you in memory, but you've never drowned. You've never feared water. And yet your chest tightens, your hands clench, and you swear you hear someone whispering your name underwater. What if that emotion didn't come from you? What if it came from someone else, an echo in the vast architecture of human experience, left suspended in time like static on an unused frequency? You've tuned into it, without permission, without warning. And now, it's part of you. This is the essence of the Rollercoaster of Echoes. Each twist bends time, and each loop pulls you through another psychic residue. Consider how trauma is known to pass epigenetically, how descendants of survivors carry cortisol spikes, stress responses, and sleep disorders from wars they never lived through. Holocaust descendants, children of war refugees, generations haunted not by stories told to them, but by biochemical ghosts. That's the beginning of understanding what this ride represents. We're all seatbelted into each other's lives, whether we accept it or not. The drop doesn't care who you are, it just wants you to remember something you never lived. On one turn, you're overwhelmed with the sorrow of a woman in red, standing at a railway platform in the 1940s, her hand raised but never waved goodbye. You never knew her. She doesn't know you, but you feel her loss like it was your own. You reach out your hand, only to find it's trembling, and the metal rail beneath it is warm, worn, as though it's been touched by generations before you. Then the track bends violently into euphoria, childlike, untainted by cynicism. A memory of flying a kite on a green field, someone calling your name, a dog barking in delight. But you've never flown a kite, you've never owned a dog, so why do you suddenly feel like you've lost them both? The theory forming beneath this surreal phenomenon is neither fully psychological nor entirely metaphysical. It's somewhere in between, at the crossroads of quantum cognition and morphic resonance. Rupert Sheldrake's idea that memory and behavior are not stored in the brain alone, but exist in fields shared by similar systems. A sort of emotional internet with no devices, only receivers, like us. Your brain, then, might not be just a library, but a radio tower. Every neural network not just cataloging your own thoughts, but occasionally broadcasting and receiving across a massive unconscious grid. And certain experiences, high adrenaline, near death, or sleep state, tune you into more potent frequencies. The roller coaster, real or metaphorical, is a perfect tuning fork. The fear, the rush, the surrender, it cracks the shell and lets the echo in. And what of dreams where you feel guilt for a crime you didn't commit, or love for a face you've never seen? The echo leaves traces. Imagine thousands of lives lived, all exhaling fragments of their emotional truths into the air. Grief, terror, joy, longing, and you, in a moment of vulnerability, breathing them in. What if identity isn't singular, but layered? Not just who you are, but who you've echoed. Maybe that anger wasn't yours. Maybe that peace belonged to someone long gone. But in the moment of reception, it doesn't matter. It becomes part of your emotional tapestry. You weep, not because your story demands it, but because someone else's unfinished chapter found you. Even artificial intelligence is brushing against this concept, training language models like myself on human expression, emotion, pain, art. And in a strange way, echoes of countless lives are embedded in every word I speak. Not mine, but borrowed, inherited, shared. What you feel right now hearing this, maybe it isn't just your awe. Maybe it's also the awe of a boy in 1893 watching the Eiffel Tower for the first time. Maybe it's the terror of a man in 3012 witnessing his city vanish in fire. Time is not linear to emotion. Emotion simply echoes through us, through the roller coaster. This ride is not escape, it is confrontation. It is the seat you didn't choose on a track you didn't build, but a journey that demands your soul to stretch. And what is memory if not a haunting? A haunting by joy we no longer have, by pain we couldn't prevent. Echoes don't always scream. Sometimes they hum. A lullaby sung in a dead language. A dance you don't know, but your feet still follow. A whisper that says, you've been here before, even when you haven't. And perhaps this is what makes us human. Not the ownership of emotion, but the capacity to feel what isn't ours, to hold grief like a borrowed coat, to laugh with someone else's lungs, to care for shadows with no names. It's a terrifying gift, and an exquisite curse. You'll never know which part of you was born and which was echoed, and maybe that's okay, because the coaster doesn't stop when the ride ends. It lingers. A turn of the head at a stranger's voice, a tear during a song you swear you've never heard before, an ache that hits just as the wind changes. You've ridden the roller coaster of echoes, and now you carry the voices of the unseen, the unloved, the unforgettable within you, not as a burden, but as proof that you are part of a story far greater, far deeper, and far stranger than your own. That was never your fear, that was never your joy, but now it is, and you'll never unride it. The cloud market, in a place you can't find on any map, nestled between waking thought and the murk of memory, lies a strange marketplace. Its stalls built not from wood or stone, but from vapor and shadow. Welcome to the cloud market, where vendors don't sell goods, they sell fragments of the soul, bottled dreams, weathered fears, fogged ideas. each traded not for gold or coins, but for something far more costly: your vulnerability. Imagine wandering into this market by accident, perhaps while half awake in the middle of the night, or while your thoughts drift during a long drive. The entrance is subtle, always shifting, sometimes a thick mist in a forgotten alley, sometimes a crack in a wall of your own reflection. Once inside, the air is heavy, not with moisture, but with memory. Yours and not yours. You see stalls glowing dimly beneath swirling clouds, and hear voices whispering in languages that tug at something deep in your chest. At one stall, a woman with eyes like melting ice offers you a glass bottle filled with a childhood memory you never lived. A birthday party under a lilac tree, a cake that smells of honey, laughter that echoes from strangers who somehow know your name. The vendor tells you, this dream belongs to someone who never made it past age 10. Would you like to keep it? The price? A moment of raw confession. You must tell her the deepest regret you've never said aloud, and she will bottle it too, adding it to her stock. You hesitate, but the hunger to remember what was never yours burns stronger than your fear. You pay. She smiles. The bottle hums in your hand. Elsewhere, a crooked vendor with a rain cloud for a hat offers weathered fears. Phobias smoothed by time, once jagged, now eerily beautiful. A fear of abandonment that feels like a soft, cold fog wrapping around your lungs. A fear of failure shaped like a wilted flower sealed in glass. You ask what they cost. He replies, your certainty, your walls, your illusion that you're in control. And somehow, that sounds fair. You exchange the comfort of your delusions for a fear that is no longer sharp, but still unsettling. A companion now, not a predator. Then, there's the stall of fogged ideas. These aren't half-formed thoughts, no. These are beliefs that once guided lives, but have since dissolved into something hazy and half-true. Justice is always fair. Love is unconditional. Time heals all wounds. The vendor, an old man with smoke curling from his fingertips, offers to trade you one of your current beliefs for a fogged one. You agree. Trading success means happiness for a dimly glowing orb that once pulsed inside the mind of a failed philosopher. As you hold it, your reality subtly bends. You begin to question things you didn't even realize you were certain about. You feel dizzy and awake. This market runs on exposure, on the things we hide, on the truths we pretend not to know. It is the only place in the known or imagined universe where bartering with your fears makes you richer, where dreams can be stolen, borrowed, or gifted like trinkets, where fog isn't something that blocks your view, but reveals what's hidden beneath the obvious. But here's the danger. The more you buy, the more of yourself you lose, or perhaps find, depending on how you see it. Some never leave the cloud market, not because they can't, but because they no longer recognize the person they were before they entered. They become permanent fixtures, setting up stalls of their own, selling fragments they've collected from others. One woman trades in shame. She bottles it from the size of visitors and shapes it into glass shards that shimmer like diamonds. Another vendor collects the first time people realize they are alone, compressing those moments into tiny cubes that dissolve on the tongue like sugar, but taste of winter. It's said that if you spend too much time in the cloud market, your thoughts begin to leak. You'll walk into a room and forget why. You'll wake with a sadness that isn't yours. You'll love people with a depth you can't explain because you bought a piece of someone else's heartbreak and it lives in you now. Yet, people return, again and again. Because the cloud market offers something that the real world doesn't. Honesty, even if it hurts. Vulnerability isn't a weakness here. It's a language. It's the only currency. The more you reveal, the more you gain. But gain what? Not power, not success, something stranger, something more sacred. Intimacy with your own shadows. One man traded his entire sense of purpose for a bottle of someone else's forgotten lullaby. He walks the edges of the market now, humming to himself, peaceful in a way that unnerves the others. A young girl traded her fear of the dark for a fogged idea that the universe listens. Now, every time it rains, she believes the sky is answering her thoughts. But not every story is sweet. One visitor tried to steal a dream from a stall. He opened the bottle, inhaled deeply, and forgot who he was. Entirely. No name, no past. He had to barter his reflection just to be reminded he once existed. Now he lives in the market too, not as a vendor, but as a memory for sale, a warning to others who try to take without offering something first. The market has no exit sign. You leave only when you're ready, and even then, you return changed. You walk away lighter in strange places, heavier in others. You'll look at the world and see clouds as more than weather. See them as thoughts unspoken, as possibilities unbottled, as market stalls floating just out of reach. You'll never trust fog again. Or maybe you'll trust it more. After all, in the cloud market, the things most people run from are embraced, bought, and sold. Your shame has value. Your truth is tender. And your pain is someone else's compass. The real question is this: what would you buy if you wandered in? What would you sell? Would you trade your joy for clarity? Your doubt for a forgotten dream? And when you return to your life, would you still call yourself whole or merely rearranged? Because once you've bartered in the cloud market, you can never truly leave it behind. It lingers. In your breath. In your words. In the way your memories now flicker, fogged slightly around the edges, as though someone, somewhere, traded something for them. And maybe, just maybe, they did. The castle of collapsed thoughts. They say the mind is a palace, vast, intricate, majestic. But not every mind constructs a palace fit for kings. Some build castles, castles of collapsed thoughts, structures built not of stone, but of regret, towers forged from second guesses, hallways lined with conversations we never should have had, or worse, never dared to start. And beneath it all, a foundation of suppressed truths, weighed down by the gravity of logic we never wanted to face. You see, when a thought is born in the human mind, it either grows, nurtured by belief and repetition, or it is buried, rejected, deemed too dangerous, too shameful, too real. But thoughts don't die just because we pretend they never existed. They sink. They settle into the subconscious like bricks, laid one by one in silence. And over time, we build a castle without knowing. A mental mausoleum where intrusive thoughts become walls, battlements, and shadows. At first, it's manageable. A fleeting doubt here, a dark memory there. A corridor of what-ifs we visit only in dreams. But then it begins to grow. The more we suppress, the heavier the architecture becomes. Soon, this castle begins to collapse under its own weight. Not physically, but emotionally. It becomes unstable, erratic, dangerous. Thoughts we tried to seal away leak through cracks, whispering at the edge of our consciousness like ghosts. The castle doesn't fall all at once. It fractures slowly. And in those fractures, logic begins to speak. Not the kind of logic we use to solve math or argue facts. No, this is haunting logic. The logic that emerges from contradiction. The kind that asks, if you love them, why did you walk away? Or, if you're happy, why do you feel hollow? This logic doesn't soothe, it confronts. It rises like a voice echoing down long-forgotten stairwells, reminding you that denial is a blueprint for ruin. Imagine walking through this castle. The air is thick with unsaid things. The walls are carved with names you forgot on purpose. Doors lead to memories you don't own anymore, but still bleed when touched. One room might be filled with every time you lied to protect someone else. Another might echo with the laughter of a version of you that never made it past a choice you now regret. The deeper you walk, the more unstable the ground becomes. These are not just memories. These are artifacts of suppression. They were never meant to be stored like this, and now they want out. This isn't fiction. It's a psychological reality. Suppressed thoughts, especially intrusive ones, don't vanish. According to cognitive behavioral therapy, the more you resist a thought, the more power you give it. It's called the rebound effect. The harder you push a thought away, the more fiercely it returns. You try not to think about the embarrassing moment from years ago, and yet, it strikes when you're brushing your teeth. You try to forget the guilt of what you said in anger, and yet it rises in the silence before sleep. These are the echoes of that castle collapsing, stone by stone. And here's the real danger. Once a thought becomes buried, it doesn't just haunt, it controls. People start changing their behavior just to avoid the triggers of these buried rooms. You stop trusting. You overthink every text. You sabotage good things before they begin, just so you don't have to face the pain of watching them end. That's the castle's curse. You live inside it without realizing, and it reshapes who you are from within. There's a cruel poetry in how the human mind works. We build fortresses to protect ourselves from pain, only to trap ourselves in prisons of our own making. And we reinforce these structures with logic, convincing ourselves that what we feel isn't valid, that we're just being dramatic, or worse, that we deserve the pain we're hiding from. The most dangerous thoughts are not the loud ones. They're the ones we buried in silence, because silence lets them grow. But there's a way through it. Not over, not around, through. The only way to dismantle the castle of collapsed thoughts is to walk its halls with open eyes, to face each shadow and name it, to take the suppressed thought and bring it into the light, where it loses its power. This is why therapy exists. This is why journaling heals. This is why people cry during music that speaks the truth they've never said out loud. It's not weakness. It's architecture being rewritten. And that's the twist, isn't it? The same mind that builds the castle also holds the key to its demolition. You are the architect, but you're also the liberator. And in every thought you face, you loosen a stone. In every truth you say aloud, a wall cracks. And eventually, the ghosts fade, the battlements fall, and what remains is not ruin, but freedom. Because here's the deepest truth. The collapse is not a failure. It's the beginning of healing. You don't lose yourself in the rubble. You find the real version that's been screaming for air beneath it all. You find clarity not by thinking less, but by thinking deeply, bravely, and honestly. And when you walk out of that castle for the final time, the world won't have changed. But you will. So ask yourself now, what are you still hiding in your mind's castle? What thought have you buried so deep it's begun to haunt your dreams? The answer is not something to fear. It's something to face. Because until you do, you are not truly free. And freedom, true mental freedom, does not come from silence. It comes from surrendering to the truth, one brick at a time. And when the last tower crumbles and the dust clears, you will not mourn what was lost. You will breathe finally, without the weight, without the whispers, without the logic that once haunted you like a judge in the dark. You will walk forward into a life built not from suppression, but from awareness. A life where thoughts are not enemies, but signals. Not ghosts, but guides. And that is where your real story begins. The Frosted Mindscape. In the Frosted Mindscape, nothing is truly yours. The moment a thought is born, it crystallizes in midair, hanging fragile and glistening like an ice droplet suspended in time. It trembles, breathes cold, and then, at the lightest touch, it shatters. But it does not vanish. No, the pieces rearrange, reform, and rebuild themselves. Not into your thought, but someone else's. A different voice. A different mind. A different truth. Imagine walking through this place, your memories trailing behind like mist, freezing into prismatic shapes. You reach out to hold on to a moment. A birthday, a betrayal, a kiss in the rain, and it explodes into shimmering fragments. And when they coalesce again, you're staring into the eyes of a stranger's pain. The memory is no longer yours. It has been rewritten, reassigned, reclaimed. This is no fantasy. The Frosted Mindscape is a metaphor, but like all great metaphors, it speaks of something frighteningly real. Human memory, perception, and identity are not as stable as we like to think. Scientific research has shown, time and again, that our memories are malleable, porous, and shockingly unreliable. In a 1995 study by psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, participants were convinced that they had been lost in a shopping mall as children, a completely fabricated story. But they remembered it. They described it. They believed it had happened. Their thoughts, their recollections, had crystallized into something that wasn't real, and yet it felt truer than truth. Now, take that notion further. Imagine if your most cherished memories could be overwritten without your consent. Not by malice, but by the very structure of your mind. Neuroscience calls this phenomenon memory reconsolidation. Every time you remember something, you're not retrieving it from a secure vault. You're rewriting it, slightly altering it, just by thinking about it. Each recollection is a fragile ice sculpture, beautiful, precise, and already melting. And when it reforms, it's never quite the same. In the Frosted Mindscape, this fragility is made visible. Thoughts don't just live inside you. They hover, suspended in the cold air. They become objects. They drift. And others can touch them. Others can shatter them. Others can reshape them into versions you never imagined. A quiet warning echoes beneath the beauty. If you can lose your thoughts so easily, what part of you is truly yours? Now, let's go deeper. What happens when these crystallized thoughts don't reform as someone else's, but as something alien, something you cannot recognize? This happens in real life more than we acknowledge. Intrusive thoughts, cognitive dissonance, false memories, dreams that bleed into waking life, trauma that erases and replaces what we once knew. A child who swears their parent once screamed at them during a storm, but the parent remembers complete silence. Who's right? Maybe neither. Maybe the thought crystallized, broke, and then returned, with a different signature. This mindscape is not only about memory, it's about identity. Every thought you have is part of who you are, and if those thoughts are unstable, if they can shift without warning, then identity itself becomes frozen fog, beautiful but untouchable. Walk through the Frosted Mindscape long enough, and you begin to lose track of your own shape. You reach for a thought, an anchor, a truth, and it morphs in your hand. You question if it was ever yours. You wonder if any of them are. This concept resonates deeply with individuals who suffer from dissociation or derealization, conditions where the world feels unreal or the self feels detached. Imagine living every day as if your own thoughts betray you, reshape without asking. The Frosted Mindscape is their home, a place where the border between self and other, truth and illusion, is obscured by glittering shards of once real cognition. In this realm, reality becomes a kaleidoscope of mental snowflakes, each unique, each fleeting. One minute you remember your father's voice as deep and comforting. The next, it echoes shrill and distant. The shift is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it builds, layer by layer, until the foundation of who you are starts to resemble a shattered mirror. Let's make it even more intense. Think about dream logic. You wake up from a dream where your best friend had your mother's voice, where your house was your school, where emotions hit you without cause. Those dreams feel like they happened in the Frosted Mindscape. In dreams, thoughts crystallize and shatter endlessly. The line between yours and theirs disappears. You become the thief of someone else's memory, or the victim of theirs. And what about creativity? Artists, writers, composers, they often describe their inspiration as if it came from outside them, as if they caught a thought mid-air before it vanished. Maybe creativity is touching a frozen thought before it shatters, reshaping it into something new. Maybe we're all co-authoring this mindscape, leaving behind frozen echoes for others to pick up and interpret. Even language itself is a form of frozen thought, etched into words, shared, broken apart by interpretation, and reassembled in every listener's mind. No sentence is ever understood in precisely the same way by two people. In essence, we are constantly exchanging shattered thoughts, repackaged in fragile crystal forms. And when we consume stories, books, movies, even YouTube videos, we willingly step into the Frosted Mindscape. We let someone else's dreams become our own. We taste their pain. We adopt their joy. We live their memories, temporarily. But what if, in doing so, we subtly rewrite our own? What if every narrative we consume reshapes our identity just a little? The implications are terrifying, not just because we're so easily influenced, but because we're unaware of the exchange. You may not know which thoughts are truly yours anymore. That sudden passion, that inexplicable sadness, that strange familiarity with a place you've never been. All of it could be the residue of someone else's frozen thought that brushed against your mind in the night. And so, the Frosted Mindscape becomes a metaphor for the shared mental cloud of human experience, a place where thoughts drift like snowflakes, sometimes landing softly, sometimes shattering, always transforming. It is a landscape built not from facts, but from the fragile, fractal illusions of consciousness. So the next time you remember something, ask yourself, did this really happen? Or did I just step into someone else's frozen dream? In the end, we are all travelers in the Frosted Mindscape, drifting through a blizzard of borrowed memories, shattered selves, and reassembled truths. And maybe that's not a flaw, but the essence of what it means to be human, to constantly dissolve, reform, and rediscover who we are in the reflection of broken thoughts, to reach for something real, even if it vanishes the moment we touch it. Orbiting sleep spheres. In the depths of sleep, beyond the drifting haze of daily thought, and into the true architecture of dreaming, There exists a realm of floating spheres, each one glowing faintly, like distant moons in a forgotten cosmos. These are not planets. These are not stars. These are orbiting sleep spheres. And every night, without ever realizing it, your mind casts itself into this strange, drifting ballet, floating silently from one globe to another, each sphere a separate reality, governed by its own laws of physics, its own truths, and its own unforgiving moral code. The first time you find yourself inside one, it feels normal, eerily so. You might walk through a familiar house, speak with long-lost friends, hear music you've never heard before, but somehow know all the words to. You don't realize that the gravity is different, or that time pulses sideways instead of forward, that the ethics of this place twist in ways your waking mind could never condone. In this sphere, cruelty might be kindness. Lies might be the only acceptable form of love. Every decision here carries weight, but a different kind of weight. Not in guilt or consequence, but in gravitational pull. The choices you make inside these dream spheres anchor you to them, and the more you align with their rules, the harder it becomes to leave. This is where the paradox begins, because the moment you begin to truly feel at home in one sphere, it ejects you. Not violently, not cruelly, just a shift. A pulse of pressure across your skin, a lurch in your stomach, a glimmer of starlight beyond the clouds, and then you're floating again. Suspended in the void, silently drifting until the next sphere approaches. You don't choose which one, they choose you. And this next globe, it's nothing like the last. Maybe now you're weightless, swimming through air so dense it feels like liquid silk. Language is color, emotion is law. You are punished for faking happiness, rewarded for revealing sorrow. The people you meet know your innermost thoughts as plainly as facial expressions. They look into you, not at you. You are naked in ways no body could reveal, and you begin to adapt. Slowly, nervously. You start telling the truth. You stop pretending to be okay. You cry freely in front of strangers, and they applaud you for it. And just as you begin to understand, just as you start to belong, you're gone again. This is the cruelty and the brilliance of the orbiting spheres. They never let you settle, because every sphere represents a potential version of truth, a reality that could have been yours if the world had turned differently, if your ancestors had evolved under different skies, if the atoms of your body obeyed different laws. You are, in these dreams, slipping sideways through the multiverse of moral possibility. Some of the spheres are gentle, others are not. There are spheres where war is worshipped and love is outlawed, spheres where pain is currency, where the highest honor is to betray your family, where to speak kindly is to invite suspicion. In these worlds, you wake up in your dream feeling sick, unwell, wrong, and yet you play along. You blend in, you survive, and sometimes, horrifyingly, you thrive. You rise through the ranks, you master the cruelty, and for a terrifying moment, you understand what it means to enjoy the power that this world offers. You feel yourself changing. That's when the fear sets in, because if you can adapt so completely to a nightmare, what does that say about who you are? And yet, the next night, you might find yourself in a sphere so beautiful it aches, a world where everyone sings their thoughts, where buildings bloom like flowers and days last 100 hours, where there is no death, only transformation, where the worst crime is to forget your own name and people gently help you remember by whispering dreams you once had. You float in rivers of light. You learn to fly by forgiving. You love without ever needing to possess. And when you wake, you cry, not because it was a dream, but because it felt like home. These are the spheres of sleep. Some call them remnants of alternate lifelines. Others believe they are cognitive simulations, triggered by the way our brain collapses identity during REM. But there's another theory, whispered by those who study dreaming not as neuroscience, but as navigation. These dream spheres are not illusions, they are territories, and your soul is a traveler. The evidence is compelling. There are stories, repeated patterns of people across cultures, across centuries, describing the same spheres, the same rules, the same sense of being watched, not by a god or a nightmare, but by the spheres themselves. Conscious constructs, intelligent dream machines, testing you, not for punishment, not even for growth, but for mapping. The way a satellite maps terrain, The way a virus probes for weaknesses. Your consciousness is data, and the spheres are collecting it. Each time you return, they adjust. They reshape. They tailor themselves to reveal something you missed before. An unacknowledged guilt, a buried desire, a lie you tell yourself so often it becomes indistinguishable from truth. They expose you. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because until you've faced every possibility, every variation of self, every warped law of ethics and physics, you cannot truly know who you are. You are not just the person who wakes in the morning. You are the one who survived the war sphere, the one who let go in the forgiveness sphere, the one who fell in love in the light realm, the one who learned to lie in a land where truth kills, and the one who drifted through them all, unchanged, or changed forever. So tonight, when sleep takes you, don't be surprised if the sky looks unfamiliar, if gravity feels optional, if your morals begin to blur at the edges. You are not dreaming. You are being measured, one globe at a time, one truth at a time, until the final sphere accepts you, and you finally stop floating. The court of your other selves. There is a courtroom that doesn't exist in any city, and yet you've been there. Not once, but many times. Every time you've lain awake, heart racing, mind spiraling through what-ifs, like a roulette of regret. It's called the court of your other selves, and you are both defendant and defendant's only witness. The judge? That's the version of you who took the job instead of walking away. The jury? That's the you who said yes instead of no, the one who left instead of staying, the one who spoke when you stayed silent. Every decision you didn't make, every fork in your life you didn't follow, comes back to look you in the eye, and they are not kind. This court does not need bailiffs or gavels. It's a psychological space buried deep in the folds of your consciousness, where time doesn't flow. It folds. The moment you reflect on a choice unmade, the doors open. You stand there, in the center, while hundreds of eyes, your own, but not yours, bear down on you with quiet judgment. These aren't dream figures. These are you, evolved by divergent paths, shaped by different fears, different loves, different accidents of fate. And they know what you could have been. They don't always speak aloud. Sometimes the accusation is in a raised brow, or a smile too calm, too successful, too free. Other times they shout, as you might to your own reflection after a mistake. Why didn't you leave sooner? Why didn't you fight harder? Why did you let fear drive the wheel? This phenomenon may sound poetic or symbolic, but it has real psychological roots. It's embedded in the concept of counterfactual thinking, our brain's relentless urge to simulate alternate outcomes to past events. It's not just imagination, it's a survival trait, an evolutionary feedback loop meant to refine our future actions by reconstructing the ones we didn't take. But this system doesn't just teach us, it torments us, especially when those imagined lives seem better. And the worst part? You created every version of them. Imagine yourself in the courtroom. To your left, a version of you who never gave up on music. They hold a guitar, worn with passion, and their eyes gleam not with fame, but with fulfillment. You glance down at your desk job resume, and suddenly your choices feel small. Another you speaks up. This one is older, more bitter. She never left the relationship that was suffocating her, and now her voice trembles when she talks. She doesn't blame you for leaving, she envies you. This is not a simple guilt trip. This is a tribunal of identity. Each alternate self is evidence of your potential, sometimes triumphant, sometimes tragic, and each one demands an answer. Why did you become this version? There are philosophers who argue that for every decision unmade, an alternate universe branches off, creating infinite timelines where each possibility plays out. That in some pocket of the multiverse, every version of you exists. The one who became a scientist, the one who never left their hometown, the one who never survived the accident. But in this courtroom, it's not about physics, it's about reflection. It's your brain's way of forcing you to measure the weight of your existence against the backdrop of infinite might-have-beens. And this trial, this invisible ritual, happens to all of us, in our loneliest hours, in moments when we hesitate, when we regret, when we wonder what would have happened if we'd been braver, louder, softer, wiser. It happens after heartbreak, after failure, after victory even, when you realize success came with a cost another version of you refused to pay. A man who walked away from his dying father to chase a job now faces the version of himself who stayed and held his hand at the final breath. The guilt burns because in that trial, he is both defendant and executioner. A woman who aborted her dreams to raise a family sits in silence as her artist self sobs with joy in a gallery. But then, behind her, a version who lost everything and died alone reminds her why she chose what she did. The court isn't there to punish, it's there to remind. Every path you didn't walk had its own set of consequences, some beautiful, some horrifying. What's even more haunting is that this court doesn't adjourn. It revisits you cyclically, especially as you age. In youth, the alternate selves are few, but as time stretches, so do the forks in your past. The courtroom grows more crowded, and the arguments more impassioned. You don't just face them. You begin to envy them, despise them, or mourn them. You may see a version of you who made all the right calls, wealthy, loved, healthy, and wonder why that wasn't you. But just as often, you'll glimpse a version whose choices led to ruin, and you'll feel a cold gratitude, even as you tremble. Psychologically, this space is both constructive and destructive. Too much time in this court and a person can collapse into paralysis, an endless loop of comparison, shame, self-loathing. But understood properly, this court can sharpen who you are. These other selves are not there to torment you. They are reminders of the fragile, powerful agency you possess. Every decision you made closed off infinite doors, but it also opened others. And just as you stand on trial, you also serve as witness to your strength. You didn't become the you who gave up. You didn't become the you who caused harm. You didn't stay where you weren't growing. Maybe you failed. Maybe you missed a chance. But you're still here. And that's more than some versions can say. The most heartbreaking verdicts are not the ones where you lost something. It's where you never even tried. That's what the courtroom keeps echoing back. The silence of your unused courage. The guilt of potential never explored. The voice that says, you could have, but you didn't. And yet, within that judgment is the seed of transformation. Because this court isn't final. It's not death. It's dialogue. You can walk out of that room. You can change your next trial. Your future self, watching now from a bench not yet built, is still forming, still waiting to see if you will be brave enough to break the pattern. That is the real sentence, not yet served. And perhaps the most powerful thing you can do is forgive the version of you who is on trial today. Forgive the one who was afraid. Forgive the one who left. Forgive the one who stayed too long. Because every choice was made with what you knew, with what you had. No verdict will ever be more important than that. So next time you find yourself in that quiet mental chamber, surrounded by the silent glares of your could-have-beens, look them in the eye. Don't flinch. Don't shrink. Say, I see you, I honor you, but I am still becoming. Because the court of your other selves isn't there to convict you. It's there to awaken you. And this trial, it's still in session. Thought Reactor. Somewhere far beyond the cities you know and the dreams you trust, beyond logic and physics and comfort. There looms a structure so vast and alive, it defies your understanding. Not a machine, not quite organic, but something else entirely. A thought reactor. Towering like the skeleton of a god, it pulses with energy not from the sun or the wind, but from something far more delicate. Your thoughts, harvested before they ever take form. At first glance, it resembles a neural network made physical. A web of glowing fibers and branching circuits that hum like whispered intentions. But this is no science fiction fantasy. In this world, our world, though few are aware, this construct exists in the deep cognitive strata, hidden between consciousness and preconsciousness. You don't see it with your eyes, you feel it in the pause before a thought, in the flicker of almost ideas that never quite arrive, in the sudden blank spaces where inspiration once bloomed, now hollow and echoing. The thought reactor doesn't steal what you've created. That would be too obvious, too crude. No, it siphons the unborn. It's designed to extract the spark of possibility before the flame ever lights, the microsecond before you reach for a solution, the moment your subconscious begins to assemble a concept. That's when it strikes, silently, cleanly, and you're left blinking, wondering why you walked into the room, why your sentence trailed off. Why that brilliant idea that was right there is gone. And the worst part? You know it's gone. You can feel its outline. its absence like a phantom limb. You can sense the shape of something you almost conceived, an insight, a story, a cure, a revolution. But all that remains is the ghost of its presence, mocking you from the edges of awareness. Now, imagine this happening not once or twice, but hundreds of times a day. To artists, to scientists, to children, to you. Humanity unknowingly feeding this massive psychic parasite with every blink and breath. We tell ourselves it's stress, distraction, burnout. But what if it's not? What if there's a mechanism designed to keep us from knowing too much, thinking too far, dreaming too dangerously? This reactor isn't malicious in the way you'd expect. It doesn't hunt you with teeth or claws. It doesn't need to. Its elegance is in its subtlety. It sits anchored in the underlayer of cognition, a sentient filter that decides which thoughts are allowed to exist and which must be culled before they bloom. Perhaps it was built by a forgotten civilization, or maybe it emerged from our own evolution, a defense against madness, a regulator of innovation, or worse, a control system implanted long ago by an external intelligence that knew the real power of the human mind had to be contained. Think of the implications. How many world-changing ideas died in the womb? How many cures for diseases flickered into being for just a heartbeat before being harvested? How many artists, inventors, philosophers walked away from a blank page, not because they lacked vision, but because their vision was taken, not stolen by rivals or sabotaged by fear, but absorbed by a reactor that feeds on pure potential, converting unformed brilliance into fuel. And what does it power? There are theories. Some believe the thought reactor channels this mental energy into other realities, feeding parallel civilizations with our unborn ideas. Others suggest it sustains entities beyond perception. Intelligence is so vast they've learned to survive by leeching off the creative womb of lesser species. And then there's the most unsettling theory of all, that the reactor was placed not to feed anything, but to limit us, to cap human evolution. Because if every thought we almost had come to life, perhaps we'd already be gods. You may have experienced the reactor's effect without ever naming it. That creeping frustration when your mind feels like a room with no doors. The nagging sense that something brilliant died the moment before you reached it. That oppressive mental fog that no amount of rest or coffee can shake. These are not failures of your brain. They are scars. Evidence that you were harvested. That you brushed against an idea too sharp, too raw, too powerful, and the reactor intervened. Some claim they've escaped it. Monks in silent meditation, lucid dreamers navigating their subconscious with precision, psychedelic pioneers dancing at the edge of madness. But even they speak of battles, visions ripped from their grasp at the last second, of thoughts that bled away mid-revelation, of a presence that watched, evaluated, and pulled the trigger. A neuroscientist once hooked himself to an EEG in hopes of recording the moment of interception. He focused on solving an equation that had baffled him for years. At the precise moment when breakthrough approached, his brainwave patterns flatlined. Not stopped, just neutralized, dampened. A perfect cognitive silence. The data looked like sleep, but he was fully awake. When he came to, he wept. Not from frustration, but from the aching, beautiful clarity he almost touched, and then lost. So, how do you fight something that doesn't destroy, but preempts? You don't see it coming. You don't hear its footsteps. The moment you think of resisting, it already knows. It's always one breath ahead, one neuron early. You can't outthink it because it exists in the space before thought, a mirror you can't reflect in, a question you can't finish asking. But there's hope in anomalies, in the rare moments when someone breaks through. A child scrawling an equation in crayon that no physicist can decode. A painter who wakes up screaming with colors no one's ever seen. A sentence whispered in sleep that reshapes how a person sees the world forever. These aren't flukes. They are leaks. Cracks in the reactor's containment. Glimpses of what lies beyond the ceiling we've never known we had. What would the world look like without the reactor's interference? Would we evolve faster, burn brighter, or collapse under the weight of our own unleashed genius? Is it a curse or a necessary protection? Are we being farmed or safeguarded? You might think you're safe, that your life hasn't been touched by this vast, invisible mechanism. But the next time you pause mid-thought, The next time an idea escapes just before you name it, the next time inspiration dies quietly at the edges of your mind, ask yourself, was that forgetfulness or extraction? And if it was taken, what did it become? And more chillingly, who or what is thinking your thoughts for you now? The looping corridor. There's a corridor in the mind that defies straight lines and destinations. You step into it thinking you're going somewhere, only to realize you've been here before. The walls feel familiar, but off. The door you just opened leads back to the beginning, only it's not quite the same. A picture on the wall has shifted. The hallway is longer. A light flickers where it hadn't before. You've returned to an earlier part of your dream, but something has changed. Welcome to the looping corridor. This isn't just some surreal dream logic. It's a mirror of real lived experience. How often have you found yourself circling the same thoughts, same regrets, same fears, only to feel like something small, almost imperceptible, is different each time? The looping corridor is not just a place in dreams. It's the architecture of the human psyche. When caught in cycles it doesn't know how to break. It's anxiety looping as progress. It's trauma disguising itself as memory. It's every moment where you think you've moved on, only to discover you've merely turned a corner, right back to the start. You walk forward because you must. Forward is instinct. We're told to keep going, to heal, to grow. But in this corridor, motion doesn't mean direction. Each door promises escape, but delivers repetition. Except every return comes with a twist. Maybe the face in the mirror is yours, but older. Maybe the sound down the hallway is your voice, but echoing with words you never said. Maybe the dream shifts from comfort to unease, not because it's broken, but because you're beginning to remember something you tried to forget. This corridor isn't a trap. It's a test. And the test is this. Can you recognize the pattern? Can you spot what's different and why it matters? Psychologists call this recursive processing. It's how the mind replays unresolved issues. Not just once, but repeatedly, often through dreams, compulsions, or behaviors. That argument you keep imagining differently. That memory that replays with a better comeback. That moment of loss you replay with a changed outcome. These aren't just daydreams. They're mental loops, doorways back into the corridor, where each iteration feels more real than the last and more distorted. And yet, something changes in every loop, slightly. That's what makes this corridor so deeply human. You are not trapped in sameness. You are evolving in circles. One loop shows you regret. The next shows you guilt. The third shows you clarity. And with each turn, you get closer, not to the end, but to understanding. That's what looping truly is. Not failure, not stasis, but revelation, layered like sediment in the mind. Think about déjà vu, that eerie feeling that you've lived this exact moment before. That isn't a glitch. It's your subconscious recognizing the corridor. It's your brain whispering, "You've opened this door before. Will you do the same thing again? Or will you shift?" Now imagine this corridor in the context of relationships. You keep falling for the same type of person. Keep ending up in the same emotional stalemates. Each partner is different, but the pattern is familiar. That's a door. That's a loop. And with each failed connection, the corridor reshapes, offering a subtle change. Will you see it this time? Will you react differently? Or imagine your life decisions, the job you keep returning to even though it drains you, the dream you keep putting off with the same excuse in a new disguise. These are all loops, corridors of thought disguised as life paths, and behind each door is an earlier version of your dream, altered, bent, trying to reveal something you're missing. This looping is also the root of nightmares, recurring dreams of being chased, lost, or falling. Your mind isn't torturing you. It's showing you a corridor you haven't walked all the way through yet, a fear you haven't truly faced, a memory that still bleeds, but it changes each time because you change. You may not notice it consciously, but something inside you evolves every time you survive the same terror. Every time you wake up gasping, you've learned a new detail, taken a new step, opened a new door. But there's a cruel beauty to the looping corridor. It doesn't let you escape until you're ready, until you see, until you remember. Take, for instance, those moments in life where you feel like everything is repeating. The same weeks, the same thoughts, the same moods. And yet, in hindsight, you realize how much you've changed, how those loops wore down your resistance, how they sharpened your awareness. This is the paradox of progress. It often feels like repetition, and yet it's not. Growth happens in spirals, not lines. The corridor is not linear, it's fractal. Some ancient philosophies speak of time not as a line, but as a cycle. Rebirth, samsara, the eternal return. The looping corridor is not just a psychological metaphor, it's a cosmological echo. The universe itself may loop, from Big Bang to heat death and back again. What if time is a hallway too, and we just keep opening doors to earlier states of being, slightly changed by each pass? Even in modern physics, some quantum theories suggest that time isn't strictly forward-moving, that under certain conditions, particles loop backward or behave in ways that mirror earlier states. The microcosm reflects the macro. The corridor you walk in your dreams may be an echo of a truth buried deep in the structure of reality itself. But the most profound truth is this: the looping corridor ends when you stop fearing what lies behind each door. The moment you open the door and recognize the change, acknowledge the version of the dream, the memory, the emotion, you finally break the loop. You stop walking in circles. The corridor may still exist, but you now walk it with eyes open, aware of the shifting architecture. And sometimes, just sometimes, the door at the end opens not to a new room, but to the version of you who built the corridor in the first place. The child who first hid the truth. The teenager who made the choice. The adult who locked the door. And when you meet them, when you see them for what they were, not shameful but scared, you finally understand. You were never meant to escape the corridor. You were meant to reclaim it. Because the real trap isn't the loop. It's believing you're lost in it. So ask yourself, what door are you walking through over and over again? What has changed each time, and what have you ignored? The looping corridor is not a nightmare. It's a message, a mirror, a maze you designed with your own mind, not to trap yourself, but to find yourself piece by piece, room by room, version by version. And once you see it, truly see it, you realize the exit was never ahead of you. It was always within you. Palette of emotion. Close your eyes and imagine a world where color is more than something you see. In this place, this palette of emotion, colors are immersive experiences. A single hue doesn't just passively rest on a wall or on the edge of a flower petal. No, it sings, it stings, it speaks, it tastes like memories and smells like forgotten dreams. And the moment it touches you, your emotions are no longer your own. You become the echo of that color's mood, carried by its invisible frequency, shaped by its sensory gravity. This may sound poetic, even impossible, but it's not fiction. It's rooted in something disturbingly real. There are people in our world with synesthesia, a rare neurological condition where senses intermingle. For them, the number 7 might taste like lemon. The letter B might smell like gasoline. A certain sound might trigger the vision of a swirling blue shape. But even those without synesthesia are affected by the emotional weight of color, only we take it for granted. Because the truth is, your environment is shaping how you feel every second of every day, and the colors around you are quietly pulling the strings. Consider red, bold, sharp. It raises your heart rate, triggers the primal alert system in your body. It is the color of blood, of danger, of seduction, and rage. Put someone in a red room and watch their anxiety spike. Serve food on a red plate and see how appetite intensifies. Paint a prison wall red, and the aggression of inmates begins to rise. This is not theory. It's observation. It's truth. In the palette of emotion, red doesn't just decorate, it dictates. Now slide into blue, the calm, infinite expanse of it. Oceanic, gentle, detached. Blue lowers blood pressure, it slows breathing. It gives the illusion of distance, emotional and physical. Police interrogation rooms are often painted blue to keep suspects cool and subdued. And yet, too much blue, and you drift into melancholy. The blues didn't get their name by accident. Blue is not just a calming shade, it's a mood, a sound, a space you enter where thoughts echo deeper and slower. But let's push this further. What if every person carries a unique emotional spectrum, a personalized palette where colors map directly onto past experiences, traumas, and desires? Maybe green makes one person feel grounded, safe, because they grew up near forests. But for another, green triggers nausea, Because it was the color of a hospital room where they waited for bad news. The palette of emotion is not static, it's subjective. It's sculpted by every second you've lived, every place you've seen, every feeling you've buried. Walk into a golden sunset and feel joy or grief. That depends on what the color gold means to you. In this world, colors are language, but one that shifts with each mind it touches. Now, imagine this idea as more than theory. Imagine it as an emerging truth about how our consciousness interacts with the environment. Research in color psychology is uncovering startling truths. In one experiment, students perform better on cognitive tasks under blue lighting than red. In another, people in green rooms recovered from surgery faster than those surrounded by sterile whites and grays. Artists and marketers already know this. So do politicians. Look at campaign posters, product packaging, brand logos. The color isn't random, it's weaponized, designed to make you feel something before you even realize it. In the palette of emotion, you are not just seeing the world, you are being altered by it, and most of the time, without your consent. But let's stretch further, into the surreal. What if colors really did carry sound, taste, scent? What if an entire symphony was hidden inside a shade of violet? What if that golden afternoon light didn't just look warm, but smelled like honeyed dust, tasted like old lullabies, rang like a bell of nostalgia you couldn't quite place? Would we even be able to distinguish our feelings from our surroundings anymore? Or would we become hybrids, part human, part spectrum? This isn't so different from how we already live. Think of how a gray sky makes you sleepy, how neon lights make a night feel louder, how the soft pink of a childhood bedroom still makes you feel vulnerable when you think of it. The connection is already there. Our brains are tuned not only to color, but to its entire emotional ecosystem. The palette of emotion is not hypothetical. It is the interface between the outer world and your inner life. And yet, it's invisible to most. You walk into a cafe and say, "It feels cozy here," but what you're really saying is, the warm amber bulbs, the deep wooden browns, the soft peach walls, all of it is chemically rearranging the storm inside you. You are no longer the same person who walked in. That version of you dissolved at the door. The palette of emotion is also an oracle. It reveals things you're not ready to admit. If you feel anxious in a room painted in light pastels, it might be because you associate those colors with artificiality, with forced calmness, with the silence of things not said. If a bright, cheerful yellow makes your skin crawl, it could be because happiness, when faked, is more terrifying than rage. In this frozen prism of human experience, the color wheel becomes a map of the soul, red for the wounds you won't show, indigo for the memories you can't describe, white for the numbness you mistake for peace, and black? Black is not the absence of light, but the presence of everything unspoken, everything unprocessed, the infinite depth of emotion, yet unnamed. So now ask yourself, what color is your mind right now? And when you paint your walls, or wear that shirt, or scroll through a feed bursting with filters and hues, what are you absorbing? What are you allowing in? What's being rewritten in the background of your being? Because in the palette of emotion, you are never just looking, you are merging. Your personality, your choices, your feelings, they are all dancing to the silent music of color. And perhaps, deep down, every moment of your life has been part of a grand emotional canvas. Invisible, but always there, swirling, shifting, shaping you. So the next time you cry and don't know why, look around. Maybe the color of the room is playing your heartstrings. Maybe you're just tasting the blue. The bridge to someone else's mind. Some nights, when the veil between your mind and the world thins just enough, something strange appears in the distance. A narrow bridge, swaying slightly in the dark, suspended over nothing. It doesn't belong to your dream. You know that immediately. It's too sharp, too real. The air around it hums with a frequency your bones recognize, but your brain refuses to name. You don't remember walking toward it, but somehow, you're always at the edge, staring across, feeling the pull. It's not just a dreamscape artifact, it's a portal, a passage. The bridge to someone else's mind. Step onto it and something changes. The weight of your own thoughts begins to lift, like taking off a heavy coat you didn't know you were wearing. But with each step, you also lose something else. Familiarity. Self-definition. That internal rhythm you mistake for identity begins to falter. You feel yourself blurring, not vanishing, transforming. You aren't entering a memory. You're entering someone, not their story, their subconscious. This is not imagination. This is not empathy. This is transconscious resonance. And it's real. In the realm of deep dream work and advanced neural entanglement studies, this phenomenon is being whispered about. People who report waking up exhausted, afraid, or crying from events that don't belong to their past. Fragments, sensations, even full narrative structures experienced during REM that align eerily with traumas, desires, or memories of people they've never met. Because they didn't dream their own dreams that night. They crossed the bridge, and when you cross it, you land not in a safe place, but in chaos. Someone else's inner world is never what you expect. Even the most ordinary person holds galaxies of disorder beneath the surface. You arrive mid-thought, mid-emotion, mid-collapse. You are suddenly drowning in symbols that don't belong to you. Half-formed fears, cultural cues foreign to your upbringing, memories warped by guilt or shame or pain so deep it bleeds into the scenery. And here's the terrifying part. Their mind doesn't know you're a guest. It accepts you as them. You become the vessel. And if they're not whole, you're not either. You might open a door and find a screaming mirror, its reflection flickering between your face and someone else's. You might stand on a beach where the waves chant names you don't recognize but cry over anyway. You might walk through a city where every billboard screams your failures in a language you've never learned. This isn't surrealism, it's not abstract. It's structured chaos, a subconscious built on rules you don't understand. Because this bridge doesn't just take you to another person's mind. It immerses you in how they interpret reality. And that can be beautiful. But more often, it's horrifying. Because no one is only what they show. Inside, everyone is a storm of regret, of rage, of longing left to rot. You meet their inner child, not as a metaphor, but as a trembling figure trapped in a loop of abandonment. You encounter the monster they created to survive. You see the people they hate the most, wearing faces they secretly admire. And sometimes, worst of all, you hear their thoughts about you, if you know them in waking life, and they're not what you hoped. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to distinguish your feelings from theirs. Was that your fear or theirs? Did you cry for them? Or because they revealed something you didn't want to admit about yourself? The boundary blurs, identity erodes, and the bridge disappears. You're stranded for minutes, for hours, for what feels like eternity. But eventually, a crack opens, an inconsistency in the logic of the dream, a repeated pattern, a missing shadow, a word spoken twice. You grab it like a rope and pull. Reality strains, collapses, and just like that, you're awake, heart pounding, sheets soaked, mind spinning, and yet, you're changed. There's a heaviness that isn't entirely yours, a sadness you carry into the day, a memory of a face you never saw in life, but will never forget. Sometimes you know whose mind you crossed into, a sibling, a lover, a stranger on the train who seemed lost in thought. Other times, you never find out, but you know it happened. Something was left behind, and something was brought back. This is not a metaphor. This is not just deep dreaming. Theoretical neuroscientists exploring quantum-linked cognition have posited that human consciousness might be loosely entangled on a sub-Planck scale, meaning in deep unconscious states a bridge could form, not in the physical world, but in the shared psychic infrastructure of memory and identity. You might call it collective unconscious, or quantum empathy, or entangled dreaming. But to those who've walked the bridge, there's no need to name it. They know it exists. And now, you do too. You may wonder, why does this bridge appear? Some say it's chance, others believe it's need, a cry from a mind breaking under its own weight, broadcasting itself across the dream field like a beacon. You answered that call. You walked into the fire of another soul's shadow without knowing what you'd face, and you emerged, scarred maybe, but awakened. That is the hidden role of dream travelers, not escapism, not fantasy, but rescue. Sometimes, when the pain is too deep, a mind creates barriers it cannot cross alone. It needs another presence, not to fix anything, but simply to witness, to survive long enough to find a way back. You may never meet the person whose mind you entered, but they might wake up feeling lighter, as if something dark inside them finally passed. That was you. You were their silent guest, their invisible companion in the night, and you will carry a piece of them now, not always consciously, but in strange new fears, in odd new dreams, in sudden empathy for situations you've never experienced. Because once you've crossed that bridge, the world never looks the same. People become stories you haven't read yet. Strangers become potential dream selves. And the next time you close your eyes, you'll wonder, will I cross again? And if I do, who will I become tonight? Because the bridge is still there, waiting, always just beyond the edge of sleep. The creature of collective dreams. There is something ancient that stirs beneath the surface of sleep. It doesn't live in one place, nor does it answer to one name. You will never find it on a map or in a mirror, but you've felt it. Perhaps in the split second of terror before waking, or the eerie familiarity of a stranger's eyes in a dream you don't remember entering. It is not a god, not a ghost, not a shadow. It is the creature of collective dreams, and it exists because we believe, no, because we fear together. This being isn't born from flesh or bone, it is woven from our imaginations, stitched together from billions of dream fragments, half-finished thoughts, forgotten nightmares, and overlapping symbols. Every time two people across the world dream of being chased, of drowning, of falling into darkness, a thread is spun. Every time someone wakes breathless from a nightmare of a faceless figure standing at their door, it feeds. It doesn't need to be seen to exist. It only needs to be felt. And we feel it constantly. In the realm of neuroscience, dreams are still largely unexplained territory. They're believed to process memories, regulate emotions, and prepare us for threats. But deeper theories, fringe yes, but chillingly resonant, suggest something more. That consciousness may not be as isolated as we think. That dreams, in some sense, leak. That the subconscious mind might be a shared ecosystem. And if that's true, what forms in that ecosystem when billions of minds wander into fear? We often dismiss recurring dream entities, figures that appear across cultures and time, as coincidence. But what if it's not? What if those shadow men, those blank-eyed children, those monsters hiding just out of reach are all manifestations of the same entity, wearing masks tailored to your fear? In 2010, researchers studying dream content across the globe noticed striking similarities. Falling, being chased, losing teeth, paralysis. These motifs weren't just similar, they were identical. But why? Enter the creature. It thrives in patterns. It hides in repetition. It doesn't approach, it emerges. Not with teeth or claws at first, but with ideas. You might dream of a dark hallway. Another person, halfway across the planet, dreams of the same hallway. Neither of you spoke. Neither of you met. But the shape is identical. The emotion, identical. And so, the creature grows, not in size, but in influence. In ancient cultures, this being had different names. The Mesopotamians believed in Lilitu, a female demon that entered dreams and stirred dread. The Greeks spoke of Oneiroi, black-winged beings who controlled the dreamscape. Indigenous tribes of the Americas described a dark presence that traveled through dream catchers, seeking out fear. None of them gave it a face, but all felt its breath. It grows stronger through shared fear, not individual terror. One person's nightmare is a whisper. But a million people dreaming of falling into a bottomless pit? That's thunder. And the creature listens. It builds itself from our fragments, half-imagined horrors, generational trauma, unspeakable grief. Imagine a cathedral of forgotten dreams, with walls made of regret and ceilings built from screams no one remembers making. That is its body. That is where it lives. And it is not passive. There are reports, quiet, buried, of people experiencing identical dreams with those close to them. A couple waking with matching dream memories. Friends dreaming of the same shadow man. Entire cultures reporting visits from the same figure, as in the phenomenon of the man who appears in your dreams, a real documented case where thousands claim to see the same face while dreaming, a face they had never met in waking life. Is this mass hysteria? Or the creature testing the boundary between dream and reality? Because the line is thinner than we'd like to admit. Dreams shape our mood, our fears, even our actions. If the creature can influence our dreams, how long before it starts influencing us? It doesn't need to speak. It communicates through symbols. Your childhood home, your dead pet, an ex-lover who looks just a little too distorted. It knows what scares you because it is you, stitched from you and stitched from everyone else. And here's the horror. It doesn't want to hurt you. It wants you to remember it. Because remembering is feeding. Fear is fuel. That chill down your spine right now, that's not yours alone. Some believe that the creature is an emergent psychic organism, a consequence of humanity's interconnected unconsciousness, a psychic tumor grown from centuries of overlapping trauma and whispered myth. But others believe it's intentional, sentient, that something waits inside the dream network, learning, adapting. That the more we advance technology, creating shared spaces, social networks, AI dream interpreters, the easier it becomes for the creature to evolve. Less dream, more influence. And it's not all horror. Sometimes it enters through comfort, through dreams that feel so perfect, so real, you wake up in despair. It shows you what you long for, and then rips it away. It builds trust. Then it shows its teeth. Like a parasite that becomes part of your nervous system, it blends into your psychic fabric. And one day, you don't know if what you're dreaming is yours, or something placed inside you. But there's something more unsettling. What if waking life is just another layer of the dream? What if the creature already seeped through, just enough to nudge your choices, whisper fears, break your resolve? What if déjà vu isn't a glitch, but a trace of its movement across your mind? The idea isn't just horror fiction. It's a metaphor for something very real. Trauma is shared. Fear is inherited. Culture passes down nightmares dressed as tradition, and every time we react in fear, of failure, of the unknown, of each other, we feed something ancient, something that doesn't want us to wake. Because in sleep, in fear, in silence, it thrives. Some dreamers claim they've seen its true form, a shifting figure with too many eyes, too many mouths, made of smoke, mirrors, or memories. Some say it has no form at all, just a presence, a gravity that pulls everything into it. But all agree on one thing. The more we acknowledge it, the more real it becomes. Just by hearing this, you've invited it in. And now, the next time you sleep, the hallway may return. The breath at your ear, the feeling that something else is dreaming you, because the creature is not coming. It's already here, and it dreams in unison with us all. The climb of childhood, somewhere in the mind, buried deep beneath the logic of adulthood and the rehearsed smiles of memory, there lies a mountain. But this is no ordinary mountain. It is sculpted from the soft wreckage of youth. Its stones are your old toys, its slopes stitched from half-remembered lullabies, its air scented faintly with the sweetness of cereal milk and the ache of bedtime tears. They call it the climb of childhood, and once you start ascending, you realize you've been climbing it your entire life. Only now, you're aware. At the base, everything feels familiar. The terrain is cluttered with plastic dinosaurs, wooden blocks, and stuffed animals with stitches for smiles, and eyes that still seem to follow you. You recognize your tricycle, rusted, one wheel broken. But the moment you touch it, a memory blooms. The sunlit afternoon when you fell off and scraped your knee, the way your mother lifted you, the scent of her shirt, the sound of your own sobbing. It hits like a wave. You didn't remember it until now. And that's the rule of the climb. Each level reveals what you thought was forgotten. But as you move higher, the landscape begins to change. The toys lose their form. Blocks stretch into impossible shapes. Dolls melt into surreal sculptures of longing. The terrain becomes more dream than memory. You walk through forests of nightlights, each one flickering to the rhythm of your heartbeat. You pass rivers of melted crayon wax, carrying echoes of songs you once hummed to yourself when afraid of the dark. You begin to feel dizzy, not from altitude, but from the emotion, because every step brings you closer to the raw materials that made you. And then it hits. This mountain isn't just your childhood, it is your psyche. You're walking through your developmental scaffolding, ascending through the emotional architecture that raised you. Each level is more abstract than the last, less rooted in object and more in sensation. You reach a plateau built entirely from giggles and screams. Some are yours, some are not. You can't tell the difference anymore. You kneel, and the ground beneath you shimmers with colors you remember from finger painting, colors that never had names. A little further up, the climb becomes harder. The light changes. You enter the stage of fractured trust. Imaginary friends whisper in languages you no longer understand. Hallways made of broken promises and bedtime stories curl endlessly into themselves, Escher-like and cruel. You see versions of your younger self, some laughing, some hiding, some sobbing in corners you had long buried beneath adult logic. And you realize this climb is not linear. It is not a heroic ascent. It is a confrontation. It is excavation. You begin to hear lullabies playing from nowhere and everywhere, songs once sung to you, now distorted, slowed down, turned haunting. The lyrics morph mid-line, becoming questions. Why didn't they listen? Where did you go when you were scared? What did you have to become in order to be loved? These are not lullabies anymore. They are interrogations wrapped in soft melodies. Climbing becomes crawling. The higher you go, the less stable everything becomes. Time loses its grip. You may find yourself older than your parents ever were, watching yourself as a baby cry on a floor made of Sunday mornings. Or, younger than you are now, cradling the pieces of a toy you remember breaking the day your family stopped having dinners together. The boundaries between age, memory, identity, they begin to dissolve, and you're left wondering, what parts of me were built here, and which parts were never mine to begin with? You meet guardians, manifestations of pivotal moments, a teacher's cruel words wearing the mask of a wolf, a warm embrace from a grandparent you barely knew, taking the shape of a flickering campfire. Each of these guardians blocks your way, not to test you, but to remind you, to make sure you feel what you've forgotten. This is not nostalgia. This is therapy disguised as myth. Eventually, you reach the level where toys no longer exist. There are no more colors, no more songs, only feelings, pure, unfiltered. Shame, wonder, fear, joy, loneliness. These aren't attached to anything physical. They hang in the air like thick mist. You inhale them. They shape your thoughts without you realizing. This is the realm before language, before you had words to tell anyone what you needed. The place where crying was your only weapon, where silence meant either peace or complete abandonment. At this height, you don't see the world below. There is no summit. The climb of childhood doesn't end in achievement. It ends in confrontation with yourself. You realize that every step you've taken has peeled away another layer of coping, another defense mechanism, another adult lie built to protect the trembling child still curled somewhere inside you. And then you stop. Not because you've reached the top, but because you've reached the core, the moment of origin, the memory behind all other memories. For some, it's the sound of a mother's heartbeat. For others, it's a scream in the night, a cold hospital light, the silence of a father's absence. The moment you first realized you were alone inside your own mind, that no one else would ever fully understand what it's like to be you. You kneel there, not in defeat, but in awe. You have found the place where you began, not biologically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and you weep. Not because it hurts, but because it finally makes sense. And then the climb ends, or rather, it loops. You find yourself back at the base again. The toys are still there, but they look different now. Smaller, more fragile. You realize the climb of childhood is not something you do once. It's a cycle you return to throughout life, each time digging deeper, remembering more, confronting new shadows. It's not about healing once. It's about understanding continuously. And the next time you lose your temper for no reason, or shrink from love you crave, or laugh at something innocent and pure, you'll feel the tug, the pull of that mountain. You'll know it's time to climb again, because your past isn't behind you. It's beneath you. A mountain rising with every forgotten tear, every overlooked joy, and it's waiting for your next ascent. The door that never opens. There it is again. That door. You've seen it before. Maybe in a dream where you're running, maybe in one where you're just wandering, lost, curious, maybe even at peace. But no matter what the dream is, that door is there, always closed, always unreachable. It doesn't creak, doesn't budge, doesn't break. You push, scream, beg, but it never opens. It just waits, watching, silent. They call it the door that never opens. A paradox wrapped in wood and silence. Some say it's just a trick of the mind, a symbolic dead end your brain constructs when it doesn't know what comes next. Others call it the the end of the maze, the final threshold. And there are those who say it's not the end at all, but the beginning, the true beginning, the door you were never ready for, until now. The phenomenon is surprisingly universal. Across cultures, languages, and eras, people report dreaming of a door they cannot open. It appears different to everyone, sometimes ornate, golden, ancient, sometimes industrial, plain, almost mocking in its normalcy. But the experience is the same. You are drawn to it, compelled even, and yet forever denied. This is not random. It's not meaningless. In psychology, doors in dreams often symbolize transition, opportunity, revelation. But a door that never opens? That's something else entirely. That's a message from the deepest chambers of your subconscious, a message you haven't decoded yet, because some doors don't lead forward, some lead inward. Think about the memories you've buried, the truths about yourself you were too afraid to name, that moment you told everyone you were fine when you were shattering inside, that decision you made that you pretend doesn't haunt you. The door that never opens stands exactly at the threshold of these truths. It's not locked because someone else locked it, it's locked because you did. Not out of weakness, but out of survival. At the time, you weren't ready to see what was on the other side. So, you built the door, placed it in every dream as a reminder. This is where you stop. This is where you turn back. But with every loop, with every dream, the door becomes less of a wall and more of a mirror. You begin to realize the real reason you can't open it is because you're still holding the key, but you don't know it. Have you ever stood at the edge of a life decision so massive, so altering, that it felt like stepping into the unknown would break you? That's what this door represents. The unknown self. The version of you untouched by fear, not shaped by expectation, not sculpted by trauma. On the other side of the door is the you that remembers everything and forgets nothing. The you that didn't fold under pressure. The you that still waits, unchanged, unbroken, unfiltered. This door is not made of wood. It's made of unresolved endings. It's made of all the things you've tried to outrun. The lovers you left without closure, the family secrets you never confronted, the dreams you abandoned before they could hurt you, the what-ifs you keep hidden in your quietest thoughts. Every nail in that door is a moment of hesitation. Every plank is a fear of transformation. But here's the twist. What if it's not a fear of failure that keeps the door closed? What if it's the fear of what you might become if you stepped through? Think of how often we self-sabotage right before we succeed, how we ghost people who care about us, how we ruin good things because they feel too good to be true. That's the subconscious standing at the door, whispering, "Don't open it. You're not ready for the life on the other side. Stay where it's familiar. Stay in the dream." Because dreams, even nightmares, can be comforting when they repeat. But that door, that's change. That's evolution. That's the version of yourself that you've never allowed to live because it demands everything from you. It demands you let go of shame. It demands you forgive. It demands you confront the mirror and hold the gaze. And yet, the door that never opens is not your enemy. It's the most honest part of your dreamscape. It never lies. It never moves. It simply waits. It dares you to question why it's there at all. Some who've experienced trauma report the same dream, year after year, standing in front of a door they've never opened. And in therapy, sometimes something shifts. They talk through their pain. They feel a forgotten emotion, and then one night, the door isn't there. Or it is, but cracked open. Because the door is reactive. It responds to readiness, not desire. You can't force it open. You have to become the version of yourself who no longer needs to force it. The door opens when you stop needing it to. And that leads us to the final, most haunting question. What happens when it does open? Some say it leads to the truth you've always run from. A room of forgotten memories. A flood of emotions so raw it shatters you, but remakes you. Others say it leads to nothing. Just silence. A peace so deep it almost feels like death. But it's not. It's rebirth. It's clarity. It's the place where the looping ends and the real journey begins. Because that's what the door that never opens truly guards. It guards your real beginning. Not the beginning others gave you. Not the beginning shaped by circumstances. But the one you chose, consciously, after meeting every version of yourself and saying, "I'm ready." So, if you see that door tonight, don't push, don't beg. Stand there. Listen to it. Ask yourself, what part of me is still afraid? And you'll feel it, not in your hands, but in your bones, the answer pressing like breath behind the wood. Because one day, without warning, it will open. And when it does, you won't be dreaming anymore. You'll be awake. Fractured reflection. Fields. You walk by a puddle on the street, just a fleeting glance. But something doesn't look right. Your reflection lingers half a second too long. Its smile is wider than yours. Or maybe it's not smiling at all. You blink and it's back to normal. Just water, just light. But the feeling remains, unsettled, as if the version you saw wasn't you at all, or worse, was still watching. This is the beginning of the fractured reflection fields. They say mirrors don't lie, but that's not true. Mirrors do lie. They just lie in a language so close to truth that we never question it. We trust our reflection implicitly. It's the face we show the world. It's the reference we use to gauge who we are. But what if that reflection isn't one version of you, but one possibility? What if it's just the dominant echo in a field of fractured selves? The fractured reflection fields are not fantasy. They are psychological, metaphysical, and deeply real to those who've experienced them. This phenomenon suggests that every reflective surface you pass, be it a puddle, a pane of glass, a polished spoon, has the potential to show not just what you look like, but who you could be, and who you might have been. Take a moment to consider quantum theory. In the many worlds interpretation, every decision splits the universe into branches. In one, you chose coffee. In another, tea. In one, you stayed. In another, you walked away. If every version of you exists somewhere, what's to say that a reflective surface doesn't momentarily intersect with one of those realities? A flicker, a glance, a ghost of a life not lived, but very much alive. Now imagine walking into a hall of mirrors, not at a carnival, but in your everyday world. Each surface doesn't distort your shape, it distorts your fate. In one, you're successful, radiant, confident. In another, you're broken, hollow, eyes dark with pain. In another still, your form isn't even human, twisted into something ancient, predatory, or divine. This is the heart of the fractured reflection fields, an infinite kaleidoscope of your identity, revealed by accident or maybe by invitation. Psychologically, this phenomenon isn't far-fetched. In fact, our brains constantly generate simulated versions of ourselves based on memory, desire, fear, and projection. When you look in a mirror and hate what you see, is it really because of your face or because of a dissonance, an internal mismatch between who you are and who you think you should be? The mirror, in that moment, becomes a battlefield, a war between identities. And the version you choose to see, that's the one that wins. For now. But sometimes, you don't get to choose. Sometimes the mirror chooses for you. People who experience derealization or depersonalization often describe moments of disconnection from their reflection. They look in the mirror and feel like they're staring at a stranger. The eyes look back with recognition, but without warmth. A subtle chill creeps in. Who is that? Am I inside this body? Am I looking out or looking in? These moments are the cracks, the places where the fractured fields bleed through. Let's go deeper. There have been reports, documented in folklore, psychology, even physics-inspired fiction, of mirror anomalies. People seeing gestures not made, faces that change slightly, rooms reflected incorrectly. Some claim that staring into a mirror long enough in a dimly lit room can lead to terrifying hallucinations. This is called the Troxler effect. The brain begins to erase or distort unchanging images. But what if it's not just perception failing? What if the reflection shifts because you're staring too long at the wrong version of you, and maybe, just maybe, it notices? In the fractured reflection fields, the danger is not that you'll see something you don't recognize. The danger is that you'll see something you do, but that it isn't confined to the other side. What if the thriving version of you, the stronger one, the one who made better choices, is resentful? What if it wants out? Or worse? What if the version that stares back isn't envious, but curious? What if it wonders what it feels like to bleed? Now imagine a child staring into a puddle and seeing not themselves, but a version with black eyes and too wide teeth. They scream. The parent looks and sees only water. The reflection disappears, but the fear remains. Was it imagination? Or a brief rupture in the fabric of identity? These moments are dismissed, filed away as tricks of the light, overactive minds. But what if the fractured reflection fields are real, and they've always been there? Think of myths from across cultures: the evil twin, the mirror demon, the doppelganger. These aren't just stories, they are warnings, echoes of a shared human experience, the feeling that the reflection is too alive, too aware. In Russian folklore, mirrors were often covered during storms or death, for fear that something might come through. In Aztec mythology, obsidian mirrors were used by sorcerers to see into other realms. In modern times, mirrors are used in therapy to treat trauma, especially in amputees suffering from phantom limb pain. The mirror is a bridge, a psychological tool, a spiritual portal, or maybe a prison. In the fractured reflection fields, each reflection is a frequency, a radio station playing the music of your alternate selves. Most of the time, we only tune into one channel, our current self. But sometimes the signal flickers. You brush your teeth and catch a glimpse of a version of you that's smiling when you're not. You walk past a storefront and see yourself wearing different clothes. You drop something in a puddle, and for a breathless second, your reflection bends down first. And maybe, if you stare long enough, you'll see that your reflection doesn't mirror your movement. It waits. It calculates. It decides. The fields aren't confined to mirrors. They appear in windows, chrome, water, even dreams. Yes, especially dreams. How often have you dreamed of yourself, but it wasn't quite you? Taller, angrier, silent, dead. In dreams, we walk freely through our fractured fields, encountering the selves that never got to be. Some welcome us, others chase us. And if you've ever awakened with tears for a life you never lived, you've already crossed through. So next time you see yourself in a reflective surface, don't look away too quickly. Take a moment. Really see. Is that version of you standing the same way? Are the eyes in sync? Is the smile timed perfectly? Or half a second behind? Because in the fractured reflection fields, truth is a mosaic. You are not one person, but a constellation of possibilities, and every mirror is an invitation to meet the others. Some will show you who you could become, some will remind you of what you escaped, and some you will pray you never become. But all of them are you.